Come on.
Can't believe I kissed you. Must have been your lifelong ambition.
Would it not have been logical to have left them on Gorkon ship?
Even logic must give way to physics.
Second star to the right. And straight on till morning.
You heard it up top. We are boldly going again and again and again and again and again and again, because it's the sixth time. That's right. We are talking the sixth theatrically released Star Trek motion picture, Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, here on Normies Like Us with your hosts, Admiral Colin.
Dr. Mike Coy. I'm grumpy and old.
And this is Mr. Jock. Back at it again.
The crew
The
has
final
assembled.
voyage.
The final voyage of our original crew, because I should say Bones there, my good host friend, 70 years old when this movie is made. So we are seeing the end of some TV stars as movie stars.
Yeah, end of the ascot.
Yeah, in fact, I think DeForest Kelley, this was his last film role ever.
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, they're getting older. They wanted to, have a better ending to the series than the last movie, The Final Frontier. So they come back with The Undiscovered Country.
That's right. We last left off with Cybok and fighting Space God and all this crazy stuff, a cult kind of personality and a Catwoman. And now back at it again, looking for The Undiscovered Country. And we'll jump into that later. But how are we feeling going into this, guys? Jacob, this is kind of your baby here, this whole voyage, this ongoing mission. Jock, how you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, it's sad to get to the end of a certain era, but we still got plenty more Star Trek movies that we can burn through with the TNG and then the Kelvin universe. So plenty more Trek to watch.
Yeah, that's true.
How about you?
I'm feeling good, actually. I was a little... I think I liked 5 more than most because it just has such a camp factor.
Yeah.
But,
You did like 5.
I did like it. I think Cybok was so goofy and weirdly like a foil to Kirk. And I think with this one, not to get too much into it, we get more depth. I've always been complaining about depth with Kirk and character development, and I think they do a good job on this, but we'll get into it. But overall, I enjoyed this, and I'm excited to keep going. But it is bittersweet, as you said, Jacob, because it's the end of an era. But Colin, where are you at?
Yeah, not one I rewatch a lot. We like to keep these evergreen, but I'll just say at the time of the recording of this, we're very into House of the Dragons right now, the Game of Thrones spinoff. And there was some political intrigue this time watching it where I was thinking like, you know what, this one, I don't give this one enough credit. So we'll jump into it,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this one is kind of seen by a lot of fans as maybe the second best after Wrath of Khan, and we do get, of course, Nicholas Meyer, director of Wrath of Khan, back here again. And we could talk about our new rankings and stuff maybe at the end. But I guess let's get into it, right?
Yeah, time's a ticking. We got to go and see what's happening on whatever that planet was. Let's go do it.
Rura Penthe?
Ooh.
No, not there. The one that blows up. Anyway.
Oh, the moon of Praxis. The Klingon.
Yes.
Yes.
Not Kronos.
Take a drink every time they say
Kronos
Praxis
is...
in that scene. You'll pass out.
Yeah. Kronos is the Klingon home world.
Okay.
Yeah,
yes.
But let's get to Praxis then. Tak Pak Tabe.
We're back. We're beaming down, and we are talking about the 6th theatrically released Star Trek film. As we said up top, starring the original cast. This is their final go at it. But we also get some returns, Jacob. Let's talk about the return of the director, Nicholas Meyer.
That's right. So, to talk a little bit about the development of this movie, obviously The Final Frontier had a bad reception, was a sort of a box office bomb. And they said, we can't go out this way. We got to do at least one more of these, because I think maybe Final Frontier was meant to be the last one, hence the name, Final Frontier.
Yeah, so unfair. Does not deserve to have that name, and this film has such a bad name.
There's another
They
there's
should
another
have flipped the
frontier.
names, honestly. It would have been
Yeah.
perfect.
The
They're going to
undiscovered
the
country
undiscovered
is
country.
God.
Where God is,
Yeah.
and then the final frontier.
Yes,
Can
is
we?
the final film.
But
Yeah,
of course, as
do
we
the
all
thing.
know, the undiscovered country is a Shakespeare reference to the future. As we all know, we're very,
Oh
literary
yeah,
Shakespeare geniuses here.
I knew that before I saw a single episode of Star Trek. I was well read on my Shakespeare, and I read it in the original Klingon. So
Yes.
That's right.
But so this movie, they're like, what should we do? Our old friend Harv Bennett, who was, creatively involved with a bunch of these movies, he was sort of writing a treatment for Starfleet Academy, where they were going to have like a younger Kirk and Spock in Academy together and have all that.
which will come out on Paramount Plus eventually, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I would say we're a year away from that.
Yeah,
Well, it's
yeah.
almost like J.J. Abrams might have even took some of that idea for the first, his first
They
Star Trek movie.
kind of
Yeah,
are in
yeah.
school in the first act of that film. You're totally
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was doing that. Paramount kind of saw it and was like, I don't know. And then they're like, you know what? Nicholas Meyer, he's a little interested in maybe coming back. So they got him back. They had these two guys write a script. They didn't end up using that much from that script, I think. But then Leonard Nimoy got involved with the story on the story side of things. They didn't want to have him direct again because he's like, if I direct, then Shatner will be, just pissed off. So
I'll have to
I'm
do
not gonna
another
direct,
one.
but I'll
Good
I'll
work.
contribute creatively to the story. And he kind of had the idea to have, well, what if? So obviously, what's big in the news at this time, late 80s, early 90s, the Cold War, right? The end of the fall of the Soviet Union, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and Nimoy
Right.
said, what if we have the wall comes down in space? What would that look like? And that's the genesis of this idea for the Undiscovered Country.
Wow.
So simple. Like, I think
Yeah.
1991, right? Berlin Wall's 90, I believe. I had to brush up on my history. I don't know it as well as my Shakespeare, but
Right.
it's like the perfect idea for a Star Trek story, right? I love it.
Yeah,
as a premise,
a little more
yeah.
the politics, the diplomacy, which Star Trek is known for, especially like in the Next Generation era and that kind of thing. So obviously, while this is being made, Next Generation is airing, so they're taking influences from that as well. It's a little bit more modern, just kind of how they deal with the Klingons and the different races and how they get along.
And racism being a huge theme to this film. And it's kind of interesting to me that Shatner writes off on the story of this because the character really does not come off well
Yeah,
towards
he's-
racism.
No, well,
He's the most flawed we've ever seen,
Yeah.
Kirk.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's not the most racist person. The character, again, obviously the theme of the movie is race, but it's very interesting to see a hero of the film be like, hey, you other people, no. And you're like, wow, he just called them savages and animals.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's been, through the last few movies, we know that Kirk has also this personal vendetta against the Klingons. Obviously, they killed his son.
He won't shut up about it. For 3 movies,
he's
he just
always
keeps talking about
talking
how
about it.
much he's
Yeah.
sad about his
Beautiful
son.
David.
He's not trying to date a lady in the past
I
the
knew him.
next day.
I knew him for 2 days. You wouldn't understand the relationship we had.
I spent a lifetime trying to avoid that boy.
Yeah, I think he looks at a picture of him in this movie, and it might be the first time he's looked at that picture since
100%.
he died.
100%.
It might be the first time
Right.
he's looked at the picture.
But
Yeah.
yeah, this is putting Kirk in an interesting place, and it's the most interesting I think he's been since Wrath of Khan. So as we talk about the plot, I think that's a strong
Yeah.
point of the story and the script here. So good stuff so far.
Right. So Nicholas Meyer comes on board. Obviously, he did Wrath of Khan. He's kind of gives it that more naval feel that the movies kind of run with the uniforms and everything. So
A little more
this is
literary
kind of a good
too.
one.
A little poetic.
Yeah. So we have obviously General Chang in this one, played by Christopher Plummer. He's a lot like Khan. Khan loved to quote Melville, right? Moby Dick.
Mm-hmm.
Chang loves Shakespeare. He's a Klingon that loves Shakespeare. That's his thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
incredible.
obviously, all Klingons are well versed in Shakespeare, just like we are.
Yeah.
But yeah, so to get into the plot of this movie, there's a natural disaster or something happens with the Klingon moon of Praxis. It explodes. The Klingons are like, okay, we're suffering this massive disaster. We need to make peace with the Federation. So in the Federation and the Klingons, they're working on peace terms. So who do they get? They get the old crew of the Enterprise, the flagship ship in the fleet, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're all 60 plus years old now, on their last, a couple days from retirement, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I believe they say Praxis was like their big energy production moon or whatever. So it's like a Chernobyl kind of allegory, I would assume.
Yeah, but I would even say for 1990s.
Totally.
Because at first they're just like, oh, we're good. There's no problem here. And then later they have to
Right,
Colin,
right.
go
But
ahead.
but environmentalism in general and global warming now you can apply so much to it. Just like it was a mining colony. They overmined it for resources. And of course, they spent too much of their budget on the military. So they can't actually afford to save the planet. And you're just like listening to these things. And I was nodding along this time being like, this is horrifying.
Right. Well, the Klingons, obviously, they're well known for having this warrior culture. So obviously they overinvest in their military because they're a warrior culture.
What kind of dumb society would do that? You know?
Right.
They're
Who
the
would spend
police
like
of the
90% of their budget on military? That'd be so stupid.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
But
They should have gone green.
the Chernobyl thing, I didn't even think about that, but that's a great comparison because the Chernobyl did have like a big impact on the eventual fall of the Soviet Union and peace terms with the West and everything. So that's a great comparison.
Brilliant, Mike.
Yeah. I mean, the wall coming down, I was thinking about that. Just the way that event going down, it affected like a lot of people's faith in the Soviet Union, even within the Soviet Union, creating more people to be vocal about, hey, fuck this. And we start to see that with the Klingons. So when I think of Nimoy, what if the wall came down in space, I kind of see all these things tying together.
And
Totally.
Mike, Gorbachev, the premier at the time, clearly had a distinct birthmark. We're going to meet the Klingon leader here, of course. Gork, is that right?
Gorkon.
Yes.
Gorkon, who has a very distinctive half-white beard, which I thought was super dope. And David Warner just crushes this role.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've got some fun facts about that later as well.
Nice.
But so we start off, obviously we start with the Excelsior, and we see Captain Sulu, right?
Oh my
Love to
God.
see it.
Taking charge of the Excelsior. And this scene, you can actually, there's an episode of Voyager where you find out Tuvok, his first assignment was working on this ship during this time. And there was like a 30th anniversary special that they did in the 90s when Deep Space Nine and Voyager were airing. Deep Space Nine did that Tribbles episode, if you remember. They go back in time to the Tribbles.
Classic.
And, they would air back to back. And the Voyager one that aired after that was this one where Tuvok's having flashbacks to this scene and stuff. So that's
to the undiscovered country out of all the things you could choose to honor in Star Trek lore. That's awesome, dude.
And George
very, very
Takei
cool.
guest roles in those flashbacks as him,
Captain
Sulu himself,
Sulu.
of course. Yeah.
Oh man, heck yeah, that's very cool.
Doesn't share a frame with Shatner in this film, huh, guys?
Maybe not until
by
the very
design.
end, right?
I guess so, right? Because
Maybe
of course, getting on the same
I'd have
ship.
to go back and rewatch it, but maybe in that last scene when they're in the conference.
I think perhaps the last scene is maybe the only time I can't confirm or deny either. But yeah, it seems like
but
that was on purpose.
He's doing good. He's captaining his own ship. He's the only member of the crew other than Shatner who becomes a captain of his own ship.
Mm-hmm.
He's
good
doing
for
his
him.
thing.
Well deserved. Yeah, it's good. It's cool to see him in the big chair. I think he's fits right in. Like he kind of commands. He's running the Excelsior. He's doing a good job. I think he carries that captainly
thank you for
vibe.
my tea.
Yes.
Earl Grey.
So he obviously witnesses this disaster, and then of course, the Enterprise crew's called in to run this diplomatic mission where they're going to meet with the High Chancellor Gorkon, and it's actually we find out Spock is the one who recommends Kirk, and Kirk's like very against this idea, and Spock has this quote, right? An old Vulcan saying, "Only Nixon could go to China."
Is that a Cold War reference?
I guess what that means, it's kind of an outdated reference for us, but basically
It blew my
back
mind.
in the day, they thought
Right.
Nixon was the best one to go to China to do peace talks because he was so anti-communist that it would make, it wouldn't make America seem weak. And so basically
And
they're
he
saying
did.
because Kirk is so anti-Klingon that he's the one who should handle these peace talks. But
Or
it
it
doesn't really
almost
make
shows-
sense.
It could also be a thing where it's like, look, if you have a bias and you can have a peace talk, then we can all have a peace talk. Maybe that's kind of the
Yeah.
mindset. But Kirk is not pleased.
He's
No.
and he's
find
not
out.
really seen. He's not really shown as a good diplomat in this movie, especially in the the first half of it.
Yeah.
He's
they kinda make a
struggling,
lot of
which we
mistakes.
don't see him do. This is the only movie that I can think of where Kirk doesn't always have all the cards. Even with Khan and stuff, he's still like, oh, he's so clever, one step ahead. In this, he doesn't have it together. He
That's
straight
true.
up
No.
says, let them die. Like, he wants
Yeah.
all the
Yes.
Klingons to die. He's straight
Yes.
up saying, I am biased against them. He writes a personal
Yes.
log that says, I don't like Klingons. He is
straight up
full
says,
on
I don't trust
anti-Klingon.
them, and I never will.
Never
Yes.
trust an elf. Like, heavy
And-
Gimli vibes,
Yeah.
you know?
And when they're in that bargaining phase where it is everyone at the meeting sort of debating whether or not Starfleet is going to move forward with this, and we see some other admirals sort of weighing in and saying like, well, yes, if they do weaken, let's say in a year from now, we're going to have all the bargaining power in the world because they're going to be just wiped out so soon. Let's wait for that.
Yep.
That you do see kind of a bit of apprehension and sort of disgust on Shatner. But again, he is reiterating like, but I also hate these people for who they are and what they stand for and what they did. Like, he's giving so many excuses. It's just wild.
Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
weird because he's very against racism in other, like in that episode where they first meet the Romulans. He's very anti-bigotry, right?
Right.
He says, "Get off my deck if you're going to be racist."
Yeah,
right?
racism has no place on the bridge, you know? Leave that shit in your quarters, brother.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe,
But Klingons, he just has a personal vendetta against them, I guess.
right, but it is cautionary. I mean, I get we're doing the whole Klingons thing, and it's like it's a separate culture and a stand-in. But for Kirk just to be like, straight up, I hate every Klingon that has ever lived because of the actions of the few that made the orders and enacted the orders to kill my son. You can't hold a whole planet's worth of people responsible for the actions of two of them. Keep
Right.
that in mind, people. You know.
But maybe he'll learn some things.
So it's not a good look to start for Kirk. And normally Kirk only ever wants to look good, which is surprising.
true.
Shatner only wants to look good. So it's a surprising place to find him. And it's a
Yeah.
fascinating journey going forward.
Puts him out of his element.
Can he overcome it? Yep.
Yeah, and basically, like I said, they're all like 3 days from retirement or whatever. Like, this is our last mission. We're all doing different things. Uhura's like doing a conference or something, and
Yep.
Chekhov.
Scotty's doing his own thing. Like, everyone's going to be moving on to their, further careers and everything. So,
But one more thing. We got to shuttle the ambassador to the peace talks. We got to travel to Kronos, get the
What?
ambassador,
that's
Klingon
right.
territory, whole thing. And, Kirk's just hating it. And but that's the mission right now. Get to the ambassador too.
Yes. So they go on board Enterprise. They meet Valeris, the new character, Lieutenant Valeris, played by Kim Cattrall.
Mhm.
Kind of a Savick character, basically the
Mhm.
same character as
Stand-in.
Savick.
The two actress Savick.
Yes, but I guess
Right.
she didn't want to be the third actress to play Savick. That would be stupid. So they just made a new character. And
Yes.
we find out, Spock's kind of grooming her as a replacement for him, kind of a mentor role. And then they're going to meet the Klingons. So the Klingon Chancellor's vessel pulls up. We meet Chancellor Gorkon. We meet his daughter. We meet General Chang, right, played
Mhm.
by Christopher Plummer,
Dun,
the
dun,
great actor.
dun.
And like you said, David Warner as Gorkon himself. He played a human in
we'd
the last
seen
movie.
Previously, yes.
Now
for
he's playing a
Strange Way.
Klingon, and then he will go on to play, obviously, a Cardassian.
Incredible. And I love this interaction because Kirk is so reluctant, obviously, but then he has to do the diplomatic thing, and it takes everything he has to be like, we would be honored to have you for dinner if you're willing. And when they say we accept, he's just like,
Damn it.
like,
Yeah.
I was hoping they would say no, I don't want to come to dinner. And he's so defeated, and then having to go through the dinner. I mean, I love this whole sequence. It's
Well,
incredible.
Classic mistake
It's
of
so stressful.
drinking too much Romulan ale.
Look who's
right?
coming to
All in
dinner.
there.
Getting,
Yep.
getting to,
Yeah.
well, look who's coming to get her. Yeah, Jacob said it earlier. This is a scene that just shows off what a bad ambassador choice Captain Kirk is. But the stress of this scene, all I could think is, if you're ever in a moment like this, and for some reason I'm at this dinner where all my buddies are at the most important dinner in my life, like, don't say a fucking word. Don't say a word. At one point, these people say something that the woman literally interprets and says, "That is so racist what you said." I was shocked.
Yeah.
Well,
this
he's
scene is
talking
wild.
about inalienable human rights, and she's like,
Inalienable
human rights.
Do you know how you
Can I
sound?
say something about
Check
Starfleet?
your privilege.
You people only like things that like stand upright, humanoid based. Like, she goes on a little rant where I was like, I have said some of these things.
It's like the meme where it's like the villain starts making their speech and low key you're like, kind of making sense. Like she's
Right.
she's spitting truth there, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, human rights. Why are you so human centric, right?
Mm-hmm.
It should be being rights, I guess.
Right.
That
Sentient
is so
beings.
crazy.
Yeah. So they have an awkward dinner. They talk about Shakespeare. Apparently, all Klingons are just really into Shakespeare.
Well, he claims it's originally Klingon. Like he
Yeah, I
straight
think
up
that's
says.
a joke. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
It's a weird line. I don't know. That doesn't
It's
work for me. That
a weird
well,
hill
but-
to die on.
Because how did it get to Earth in the 1490s or whatever? That's
Yeah.
the real
Well, I don't
thing.
think.
He
See, I don't think
escaped
he meant
here.
it literally. I think he was making a joke, but I don't know for sure.
Who knows? But either way,
Yeah.
that's Chang for you. You know, he's a
Yeah.
he's a little
But even
games
Gorkon
meister.
is like quoting Shakespeare.
They all do love
um,
Shakespeare. That's true.
Yeah. Like the humans aren't like looking for like a
Ah,
Klingon,
yes.
literary master that they can quote to kind of,
No, they're
bridge
not.
the gap there. But
Crush thy enemies, right? But here's the thing: we're used to Klingons, right? Thinking about the time when this came
Yes.
out, we've seen a ton of Klingons in Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise. We get a lot of Klingon backstory, Klingon culture, right? Especially with Worf.
yeah,
But this is one of the first times where we're getting like this deep peek behind the Iron Curtain, so to speak, of the Klingon culture, where they all love Shakespeare. Like, never knew about that. Very cool. You get to
Yeah.
see their food for like, I believe, one of the first times ever.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not
Well, yeah.
even been named Gokt or anything. It's just blue
No.
shit on a table.
Right.
Because
So
when
we're-
most of these movies were being
Mhm.
made, the Next Generation really dives way more deeper into the Klingon culture with the character of Worf and everything. When these movies are being made, they're really not that fleshed out yet. So this is actually the first like redesign of the Klingons since the motion picture, where they actually kind of changed some of their look. Where Chang looks a little different, where he doesn't have the hair and he has like that
Mhm.
eye patch and everything,
Right.
which
Yes.
is super dope.
And
Yeah,
we get to
very
see their
distinct,
culture.
very
We
dope.
get to see like the tribunal later and like their little ball
Yeah.
thing. Like all that's kind of getting introduced here. And it's cool that like they're building upon like as we're getting into TNG, the fact that the original cast and the original kind of team, like they're the ones who really open the door to the Klingon
yeah.
being like a fully realized kind of race in Star Trek as opposed to one note is pretty
Really
cool.
passing the baton.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and in the original series, they were mainly just villains. Like the idea of making peace with them was still pretty far off. But
I mean, that's the
obviously-
60s. They were a stand-in for Russia,
yeah,
Right.
basically.
yeah, them and the Romulans were the two main villains, obviously.
Would you guys
So-
drink Romulan ale?
You know it.
Oh, for sure,
Really?
You know
You know
yeah.
it. I drink vodka.
I think it would kill me. I think one drop of it, I would literally explode. And they'd be like, it's not supposed to do that.
78-year-old Kirk can drink it. I could probably drink it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm like, these guys are old humans too, and they're okay with it. Even though the next day he was like, I'm fucking hungover.
They're like
Right,
60s,
they're all just
70s
like,
humans,
"Ugh."
though.
Yeah.
He took that bottle back to his quarters, so he wasn't done
Oh,
after
yeah,
that
yeah,
dinner.
Yeah,
It's
he
like-
went home with the fucking princess, dude. Are you fucking kidding?
Right, but we get a little confrontation. Chang's trying to talk some shit. Kirk's talking
Yeah.
shit, but luckily no one dies. We get through the dinner. Fascinating
Yeah.
scene though, and we continue on the envoy.
Yeah, they make a bunch of mistakes diplomatically. They get too drunk. Romulan ale always confused me because it's called ale, but they treat it more like it's a liquor or something rather
Nice.
than
Right.
ale. But I would try it.
Yeah, I'd try it. Oh, I love when they beam away and everybody's just in the transporter room like, fuck.
Yeah.
It's like it's so good.
Michelle
Not a
Nichols
good
sits
first
down.
impression.
It's very funny.
Yeah, it's incredible.
They go back to their ship, and Kirk goes to like lay down or whatever, but then he immediately gets called back, and there's something going on. And all of a sudden, what happens? The Enterprise fires a torpedo at Chancellor Gorkon's ship. What?
Scotty, torpedo report. We're fully packed on the fucking torpedoes, Captain.
How could this be?
Yeah, and then what do we see? Two
Ghosts?
assassins show up in spacesuits. Well, the gravitational field is fried on Gorkon's ship, so there's 0G. They're floating around. They come on. They got magnetic boots. They fucking blast
these
all
boots.
those Klingons.
Yeah, dude, they murk
And you see that Klingon blood in the 0G, and I'm going to ask you guys about the effects. What do you think of those? Yeah.
Okay, so the 0G stuff is still wire work, I would imagine. And then maybe painting them out
there's
with
the
special
CG
effects.
blood.
But we're getting to the point of now there is computer stuff coming in, not just in the backgrounds, which they've obviously been using for structural stuff occasionally. But yes, now there is this full-on, like T2 red, like the T1000 from Terminator, like comes out of this guy's body. It's
well,
crazy.
Klingon blood is a different color than human blood.
And
it's
we,
more like pink almost.
Yeah,
and we get like similar Terminator effects later in the movie when we get there. But like I think this movie looks great. I know they had a new cinematographer, and it looks better than any of the movies that we've seen so far. Like it has depth. Like the consoles are updated. They got like a mixer for like a music thing, a slider. But as far as the effects, I think it's great. Actually, it's one of the best looking ones. And I know
they did get Industrial Lights and Magic came back. So
they're back. Everything looks good.
The one comment I'll just do real quick on the look, Mike, coming off of like the cinematography in the updated formats that we watch now on these HD films, cinematography is great. There's nothing these people could do, but the poor makeup department trying to cover up these 70-year-old corpses on the HD, it looks crazy. And the wig on Shatner this time looks crazy. Like they just look so old because of how sharp and clear it looks, unfortunately.
Yeah. You're gonna see that, especially in like a non-film, format, like HD digital. Yeah, but effects wise, it's good. I know like they did for that Klingon thing. The corridor was vertical, and when they fly down it, they just pulled them up it. You know what I mean?
Whoa.
So like there's weird tricks like that I heard about. But yeah, very good effects. Cool. And this whole sequence is pretty neat. Even if the blood looks slightly dated, nothing to take you out of it.
Well, I think the cool blood actually looks pretty good because that is how CG blood would, or that's how blood would look in a 0G environment, right? Liquid takes that shape of like just a bubble of liquid in the air.
Yep.
And then we see when the gravity comes back on, the blood splashes down, and I thought that was like a cool effect too.
Yeah.
Also, these phasers are cutting off arms, bro. These are
they're
crazy
blasting
phasers.
arms off, man.
Yeah.
It's violent.
It's wild.
Yeah. So the
they
two
go
assassins come on board, slaughter a bunch of Klingons. They shoot the president, or the chancellor, I should say, and then they leave. And then, Chang calls over and says, "What the hell, Kirk? Like, what are you doing? You're attacking
blew
us
up.
Why did you kill the chancellor? Right. What is this?"
And Kirk's obviously, everyone's confused. Kirk's like, "We didn't do it. I swear. I don't know what's going on. We're going to come over, see if we can help me and the doctor," right? Bones.
And then they get over there. Nah, sorry. Don't think he's going to make it.
Bones tries to save Gorkon.
He says, "I've never operated on a Klingon before," which really stood out to me. I was like, wow, it's a new alien physiology, which of course, because the warring factions he's never been affronted to, even if he has his little recorder device or whatever, the transcorder or whatever, it's not going to tell him what to fucking do.
They didn't share their medical journals with the Federation, right? We don't know anything about this anatomy, except Spock knows a little bit. They don't have tear ducts, but
Well, like in Next Generation era, they do know. They would know because it's been 100 years or so, and they've been at peace with the Klingons for a while now. But now it's like a brand new culture, brand new race that they're getting to know. So of course they don't know the physiology of them.
Right. So McCoy inevitably fails at saving Gorkon.
He fails. Gorkon dies, and of course Chang and the other Klingons blame Kirk and Bones, and they say, "You're under arrest. We're taking you to Klingon court." And What do you guys think
Now,
so far?
I have seen Cardassian Court because there's a couple pretty good Deep Space Nine episodes. I've seen just like in the movies, in the J.J. Abrams one, like standing before Starfleet on trial, and of course we've seen this in a couple of the earlier motion pictures that we've seen already before.
Yeah.
Seeing Klingon Court is wonderful. It's
Right.
like it's exactly what you would want it to be, right?
Yeah.
It's nuts. Yeah, you got the judge sitting super high up. He's got his little
Smash.
ball gavel thing.
Like sparks and shit.
Hammer? No.
And actually, I mentioned that Voyager episode. There's an Enterprise episode. Maybe you remember it, Mike, where Archer gets arrested, and they have basically this exact same court scene.
Yep.
And
Klingon
he gets
court?
sent to Rurapente.
Scott Bakula, yeah, he gets to go to Rurapente too. Yeah, before
Wow.
His lawyer in that episode, his lawyer is played by J.G. Hertzler, who played General Martok on DS9. Just a little deep fact for you there, Star Trek fans.
Yeah,
Who's the lawyer in this movie, Jake?
And in the lawyer in this one, we have Colonel Worf, played by Michael Dorn, which is Worf's grandfather. He was a lawyer, apparently. Yeah, Klingon lawyer.
Do you go to law school? Is there Klingon law school? I'm so fascinated.
What you guys told me about operating Klingon starships where you can just kill someone and take the job of captain,
Yeah.
I think you probably just do that as a lawyer.
In any job, yeah.
I'm going to be the
That's how you
judge in
get
about 3
promoted.
minutes.
Right.
I'll get us out of here. Watch this.
Now I'm the judge and you go free.
Yeah, he's free.
Slam the ball, right?
Right.
This is
So, yeah, we get this little cameo from Michael Dorn, playing his character's grandfather.
What is this? Why is this, Jacob? This is truly a joke for TNG.
Yeah, it was
Easter
just
egg.
a little fan service. Yeah, a little Easter egg for
But
you.
at this point,
Because
he's probably not
TNG
even
is
security
airing at this-
officer.
Yeah, it's probably one of the earlier seasons. So yeah, he might not be yet.
Wow.
But maybe he was a fan favorite, and they're like, let's get Michael Dorn in there. That's what
The
people
whole
want to see.
movie's about Klingons.
Yeah, that makes sense, even to show that thread of integration into the Federation. I do like that independently of our societies interacting, the Klingon legal judiciary system also ended up with a defense attorney, a prosecuting attorney, and a judge. I guess it just shows that's natural
similar.
in
Not
evolution.
savages, Mike.
As we know in Enterprise, every race is tied back to one singular humanoid race. So it just must be in
That's
our
right.
genetic
I don't
code
wanna
to
know
have a
that.
prosecution, defense, and a
progenitor.
judge. Yeah.
No, I don't appreciate that. Quiet.
Okay,
That is
anyway.
the canonical explanation for why so many species are generally humanoid. Where they have two
It's
legs,
just
two
like
arms.
us, but yeah, a thing.
With
But
a
some
different
weird shit
forehead,
on their
but
face,
that
yeah.
also could be a separate timeline. Who knows? So in this world, we we get the court, and it's a kangaroo court. It's like, hey, we're gonna get you. Chang is in there. Hey, did you say
Red
this thing in your
flashlight.
personal log? And he brings up the personal log where Kirk said, "I'll never trust the Klingons. I never could. I never will." Like, did you say
Yeah.
this? And he has to be like,
You said that like 2 days
Yes.
ago.
You
right.
said it to me,
Yeah.
not even in your personal log. We all heard it.
Yeah.
Right.
So they have all this evidence. It's all circumstantial, but it paints a picture of Kirk as having a history of mistrust and dislike for Klingons. He had motive. He had the opportunity. So that's kind of the case they're building against him.
Right. And they pull in bones like, oh, you're chief medical officer, but you're super old now and you were drunk. So maybe a combination of those things, you were basically incompetent in trying to save Gorkin. And
Or
he
you
points
finished
out,
the
like,
job.
I've never even, operated on a Klingon before. So I was doing the best I can. I was trying to save him. Wow. But
Doesn't go so well.
No, it doesn't go well. I'm surprised Klingons would have an actual defense lawyer position.
Yeah.
But it was a kangaroo court, like you said, so they get sandbagged, but they don't get sentenced to death. That's the one mercy. They get their death sentence commuted, but they do get sentenced to the mining colony of Rurapente, right?
For the rest
penal
of their
colony.
lives, which would be about 17 days.
Right.
So
So they go to this frozen asteroid, Rurapente, where they send all their prisoners, and basically you can't survive on the surface, so you have to act good or they'll throw you out and you'll freeze to death.
It's very Stranger Things vibes, like when Hopper shows up and they're like, "Look,
Sure.
there's no guards, there's no nothing. You'll just die in the snow."
It's like a Soviet prison.
Roam
right?
around.
Yeah, 100
Again,
miles in
Klingons
either
are
direction, you'll
Soviet.
just freeze to death. Yeah. So. get to
That's
see
basically
Rurapente.
Siberia. They go there. Obviously Spock and the rest of the crew are back on the Enterprise trying to formulate a plan.
What did happen?
What
Yeah,
really
they're trying
happened?
to figure out what happened. It's kind of a whodunit, really. This movie, they're trying
You
to
guys
figure out
told
this
me
conspiracy.
once that in canon universe that Spock is related to Sherlock Holmes, I believe.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
he really
yeah.
gets to flex that muscle in this film.
Yes.
Right. There's this whole conspiracy that they're trying to uncover with the boots and everything.
And as
Who
Colin
could wear
said,
these boots?
they had full torpedoes. So they're like, wait a minute. If we didn't fire a torpedo, then where the hell did that come from? So they're trying to figure out, how did this happen? Where are the boots? Because the boots and shit was definitely Enterprise gear. So what's up? Who's behind all this? Yeah.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Kirk and Bones, they're on the prison colony, and they meet this alien played by Iman, famous model, famously married to David Bowie from I think 1992 until his death in 2016.
Wow.
So yeah, Iman in this
Now,
movie.
we're gonna rate them all later. This is the reason my rating is gonna be what it's gonna be. Amon's character is amazing. This
Yeah.
is what I think of when I think of cool alien stuff, right? That you would just like, what would be cool for a Star Trek? Jacob, the blood effects earlier, I wasn't really that impressed by them. The shape shifting looks fucking amazing. Like this is clearly where it's all going. Talked about, the surface surviving. She's wearing all these fucking cool furs and shit. Like she's a fucking boss.
It's the best.
Yeah.
Perfect cast.
Looks great.
Originally, I think they wanted like a Han Solo type of character for this role. And then they were like, what if we got like a Sigourney Weaver type of actress? And eventually they said Amon. And they really accentuated her eyes with contacts and just make her look very kind of exotic.
William Shatner came into that writers' meeting and said, what if it was someone I fucked? And they're like, well.
We won't go that far. Give me Smoocher. But here's the thing, too. If I was going to lay, if I was setting up.
Fucked her, Mike.
Hey, he only said kiss in the dialogue, but maybe that was his lifelong ambition. So if I was plotting against Kirk and I was reading his logs, I'd be like, oh, you just honeypot him. Duh.
Right.
Like, of course you would pick her, right? Yeah.
Of course,
Look at the history.
Too
I had
easy.
to go through. Yeah.
Yeah. It's too easy, man. Set yourself
we
up.
see some other cool alien designs on the
We
penal
do.
colony as well. He gets in a fight with one guy and then hits him in the knees. And then he's like, oh, I just hit him in the knees. And then Amon's like, how do you know those were his knees? Not everyone has genitals on the same part of their body.
It's a real penal colony.
Yeah. Which is a hilarious line.
Yeah.
But yeah, they meet Amon. She's like, I got a plan to escape. She gives a little smooch to Kirk at night,
That was added in the day of shooting. It was somehow added to the rushes.
Sure. He's like, I need to kiss this lady.
These crumpled up pages were pushed under my trailer door.
Yeah.
And they were clearly handwritten by you, William.
Producers. So,
but then obviously he doesn't fall for the trap actually because they escape. They go to the surface, but then he sees through her plan, which of course she's working with the conspirators.
That's right.
And what
kinda
happens next?
uncovers it, right? And then
Gets in a little fight with himself.
She turns into
him. Yeah.
Yes. It's the end of an 80s era movie. So you're going to have
he's the real one. Shoot him.
Yeah, exactly.
The Spider-Man moment. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And clearly, once again, we're jumping back and forth to solve the mystery on the actual ship, too.
Yeah, and we know
it is what it is. It's losing a little bit of steam here is all I'll say.
But it's about to pick up, I think, for the best here. The prison, I think so. But I want to mention that the interior caves. It's like they did it at Griffiths,
right?
Which is the same place that was Bat Cave for the old Adam West Batman, Power Rangers. It's like an infamous, and it's only
a great cave,
a quarter mile up the trail. So it's like every time I see it, I'm like, this is the lowest effort location you could have done. You sons of bitches.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Totally.
Close to Burbank.
In Hollywood.
Yep.
So obviously,
we learned that Spock finds he knows where Kirk is because he slaps a piece of iridium on his shoulder, to track.
That's right.
him.
He's got the
so
track.
Spock is smart. He's thinking ahead when he's getting taken away. So everyone's freaking out. What are we gonna do? He's like, I know where the captain is. Don't worry. Figure out the torpedoes. And then they go.
We'll go get him.
And then when the villain's about to spill the beans, They rescue
That's
Kirk.
that's a hilarious part. So
Yeah.
he's like, "You're gonna die anyways. I might as well tell you." And then
Starts
right as he's about
monologuing.
to say, they get transported, and Kirk is not happy. He's like, "God damn it! You could have waited
I was
2 more
about
seconds."
to get it.
And they're like, "You want to go back?" McCoy's like, "Hell no!" You know, it's so
Yeah.
thick.
McCoy's way too old to be on that penal colony.
Can
Come on,
you
he's gonna finish
imagine
that.
poor him being there in that cold too?
Ah, man.
Jesus.
Jeez,
Yeah.
oh, man.
He was, yeah.
DeForest.
So we get Kirk
Um,
back. We're still figuring out
yes.
the whodunit, but now the problem is we don't know where the peace talks are going to happen.
Yes.
Or who was
the
behind
Kittimer
the conspiracy.
Accords, which if you've watched Next Generation or Deep Space Nine or any of these shows, you might have heard the Kittimer Accords a million times. That's the peace talks between the Klingons and the humans. And they're happening on Camp Kittimer, which is a neutral site. I forget what planet it's on or whatever. Maybe it's the planet Kittimer.
Yeah, but it's near, I think, Klingon space.
Yeah. So they're like,
but-
we need to go back. They're going to shoot the president of the Federation, Kurtwood Smith. And Sulu knows where the location is, so Sulu helps him out. They go back, take down the conspirators. I forgot a big twist. We find out.
That's right. We eventually do unravel
Well-
the mystery. We find the
Yes.
boots.
Beforehand of the actual reveal, we find the boots. We try this thing. Someone's accused. Look at their feet. We get this whole moment of, it couldn't be
Yes.
me. I'm a monster. Now, quick story for you guys. The first time I watched the 6 Star Trek films was at my childhood friend's house, the Birchnells. Mark and David were our 2 neighborhood chums to the Brookses, Colin and Evan. Exactly our ages, and we would kind of go over, hang out. And for Mark's birthday, they must have just come out on VHS tape, or there must have been like a collection for the first time or whatever.
They did a
right?
25th anniversary for this.
That must have been
must
what
be it,
was.
right?
Like
Yeah.
as children, So they all came out, and it was like, let's watch them all one day. And I remember truly doing it. So when I watched Wrath of Khan as an adult, all of them were mixed together. And the key
Sure.
moment I had, Jacob, was, oh, that's right. Wrath of Khan is the first half of Wrath of Khan. And then, of course, there's the stuff of Spock aging up on the planet, which is the 3rd movie, really. But and then, of course,
There's
there's
whales.
the twist. No, I didn't remember any of that.
Uh,
Then, literally, the only other moment I had was, right, then there's the twist that Zavik is the assassin after they think the other person can't wear the
Right.
shoes. So I had
you must have
all
fell
these
asleep
characters make-
through 4 and 5.
I'm
And then
positive that's what it was, dude.
that's
Truly.
hilarious. Yeah. Wow.
Just
Um,
doing a, yeah.
Yeah,
So-
we find out
But
that
you
it's
would
Valeris.
mix Kim Cattrall and
Totally.
what's her name from the second movie?
If
Robin
they're not the
Kurtz.
main character, it's
They're
just
the
here's
same, yeah.
a female Vulcan character that
Yeah,
has
female Vulcan.
7 to 10 lines of dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, they wanted Kim Cattrall
Of course.
for the Search of Spock before they cast Robin Curtis. And then in this one, she was going to play Savick just to make the twist hit harder that like she would betray Spock and all them. But
Would be crazy.
Kim Cattrall's like, no, I don't want to be the 3rd actress to play the same character. Make a new character for me. And they're like, oh, you're probably right. So they made Valeris. And
work.
yes, she was part of the conspiracy. She admits it. They do a really intense, mind meld where Spock's got to find the information. Basically,
because we learned that
torturing
this
her,
thing
right?
goes all the way to the top. You know,
Yes.
like we're trying to figure out where is the thing and who else is involved. So Spock
Yes.
is doing this intense mind meld. It's a good 360-degree shot for it. It's intense. I think. Like even now, again, you see the makeup showing because it's so close up. But I think the dynamics of that scene are very strong. And
It was
Totally.
incredible. To your point earlier, Mike, about the cinematography is just awesome in this one. But I'll ask you, the person that it's revealed to be, it makes sense why their plan is what their plan is. But what does Valeria get out of any of this and being the spy?
She's just, I think she's just a believer that the Klingons, we should not be at peace with the Klingons, and that's kind of her motivation. It's like she's
logic
looking
would
out
dictate.
for what her, what she thinks is the best interest of the Federation is to not be at peace with the Klingons.
Everyone, regardless of what side you're on, is kind of an extremist, right?
Yeah. So you have obviously General Chang was in on it. Obviously, we all knew that.
Mhm.
There's the
Uh,
reveal.
Admiral Cartwright, who obviously well, maybe not obviously, but he's played by Brock Peters, returning from The Voyage Home. He was in that, if you remember.
Oh, I did not.
Yeah, just briefly in the Federation scenes, he's like one of the admirals that's there, and then he would go on to play Sisko's father in Deep Space Nine, Benjamin Sisko's father.
Really?
He runs the restaurant. Yeah,
he runs a restaurant in New Orleans. He's a chef.
Loves baseball.
Right.
Yeah,
I just did not realize it's the same guy. That's great.
Yeah.
Brock Peters. Famously, he was in To Kill a Mockingbird. A bunch of other stuff. Yeah, he's in a lot of roles from the 60s to 90s. Yeah.
So he's in on it.
He's in on. He's kind of the hardliner admiral. Like, we shouldn't be making peace with the Klingons.
Yeah, and I watched the director's cut, and then briefly before we recorded, Jacob, you sent over a video showing some of the differences. And I did get this scene where there's a scene where they walk into the president of the Federation, him and a couple other guys, and they're basically making their case for like, hey,
rescue plan.
We could go get Kirk, and then we could just fuck up the Klingons. Like, what if you start a war? It's like, well, then we'll dooski them. Like this guy's basically like, look, they're gonna weaken, and we could just crush the Klingons. Yeah, let's just do that. So they plant a seed in the director's cut that maybe they have something to do with it. It kind of comes out of nowhere.
And part of that
theatrical.
group,
Right?
Yeah, for some reason they cut these scenes out of the theatrical version, and then I didn't realize. I thought I was watching the director's cut, or I thought I was watching the one with those scenes in, but I wasn't, and I didn't know that even existed on Paramount Plus.
Thank you for sharing the clip that you did, Jacob, and Normies check this out or try to find it if you did. Let's complain about PP one more time. Once you sent that, I walked over to my Apple TV, got into Paramount Plus, did the talk search and said, Undiscovered Country. The only thing that comes up is one version, and it does not say director's cut.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's weird. I mean, we
it's
have
just
to
hard
search
to
director's
search.
cut exactly.
I'm sure you probably do. I don't know.
And I somehow stumbled upon it. I just found the Star Trek directory and clicked the first one that said 6, and it happened to be the director's cut. So,
well, I'm glad you saw that version, Mike, because who's in that group with them with Admiral Cartwright? A guy named Colonel West, played by Rene Auberjonois, who would go on to play Odo in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
And he's in on it. He's making the plan, and at the end, he's the Klingon assassin. They basically, when he falls out that window, they cut to, that's not Klingon blood. They pull a mask off. It's him under the mask.
So strange.
Very Scooby-Doo.
So Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
But I like this kind of conspiracy thing. We've seen a little bit of this in Star Trek, like the one where the aliens took over the Federation, then they got to explode that guy. It's an early Next Generation episode.
Right.
But
conspiracy.
Yeah, but I think the reason maybe Valeris is in on it, Spock says she graduated top of her class, so she's near all these admirals that are probably influencing her too. Like, hey, if you can get on the Enterprise, we're gonna work with Chang and do a thing. So maybe that's how she got conscripted, just as a extrapolation.
Yeah, and I think her motivation, she's just a true believer in the cause of not being at peace with the Klingons, which is like, we want to stay a military organization. And the other thing is like, they're like, oh, are they going to disband Starfleet now? Which is like weird to think about, because like Starfleet doesn't exist just to fight the Klingons. Like they're supposed to be a diplomatic, peaceful mission, which is what they are more in the Next Generation era, I guess.
Well, and Jacob, they do the defund the police argument where Cartwright goes like, Kirk, you exploratory missions, they'll probably cut your budget. And the guy has to be like, no, we're not talking about cutting anybody's budget.
Right. Yeah.
And I guess what the Klingons are apprehensive about, generally, from what the public opinion is they're getting fed this line that if you join the Federation, our culture is going to get wiped away. We're going to get Federation
That's what
wash.
they say at the dinner, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's happening here. You're going to get rid of our culture. And you're like,
and that's something that's like still going on now, where people use like multiculturalism. They say it's like a bad thing, and they use that as a reason why, countries should be like isolated. It's like, it's a very hardline stance to have,
so regressive. It's insane.
Yeah. Have you ever had a Korean taco, bro? I mean, like, we're supposed to mix cultures. Let's go.
Yeah. Multiculturalism is
Mike.
Yeah, you get better music, better movies, and better food, right? How
we
could
should
you
all
not
be
want
friends. Yeah, isolationism is bad.
Get past the gokt,
Yeah, hell yeah, I eat some gok.
Anytime.
Dude, I would not drink the Romulan wine. Right?
You don't travel very well,
Klingon blood wine?
This is fucking disgusting.
Do you guys have tendies? Do you guys have tendies on this?
Tendies and fries, bros.
An Earth classic we prepared for you. It's just tendies and fries. Anyway, so
the princess picks up the utensils and looks at. No, I think it's Chang picks up the utensils and looks at them at the dinner mic. He's like, "What are these for?"
I saw a tweet. There was like this guy who wasn't very. He's a German guy who was in America, not great with English, right? So he's trying to figure out how to ask for silverware, and what he landed on was, "I need food weapons," and that makes me think of Chang so bad right now. Like, yes, where are my food weapons?
Where are my food weapons?
That's what silverware is called to me from now on. Food weapons.
Which again, they know all this stuff about
what
Shakespeare.
lights yonder window breaks.
yes.
Like what?
Yeah, to be or not to be, but in the original Klingon.
Mm-hmm.
So we get the climax of the movie that the president of the Federation, Kurtwood Smith, is giving a speech, and there's a Klingon assassin ready to shoot him, but they beat him down just in time. Yeah. They come in. It's kind of like the Manchurian Candidate, right? They come in. They save the day.
It is kind of like the Manchurian.
We know who did this. It's Cartwright, right? And they round up all the people.
Prior to getting up there, though, we do have the ticking clock of we need to get there. And we realize that the way that they were able to execute the plan is there's a new Klingon technology that they can fire while being cloaked. So we have a space battle, right? That's like it's similar to Wrath of Khan in that they can't see each other. But in this, they're completely exposed and the Klingons are undetectable. So how do you win a battle in these circumstances? And I think it's thrilling.
Normally in Star Trek, if you have a cloaked ship, you can't use your shields or your weapons while you're cloaked generally. But they have this special prototype that can fire while cloaked, which is how they did the whole setup in the first place where they fired on Gorkon's ship. And now they take that ship.
Is this ever seen again?
I think there's maybe certain instances of it, but it's kind of like a technology that's too dangerous for anyone to have. So they kind of made rules against it, right? Yeah.
Wrote it off.
Yeah, like
Romulans,
weapons.
like the Federation doesn't even have cloak ships, like Romulans do. That's kind of
right.
Like
that's
in DS9, they make an agreement with the Romulan government to have a cloak ship, the Defiant.
But they're not even in the Federation, really, right? So
no, and that's just
they do what they want.
Sort of a temporary alliance against the Dominion.
Right. Yeah, so it's an interesting space battle, though. The point being that like it reminds me of some of those good episodes of Strange New Worlds, even though this predates it by decades. It's like, all right, well, how do we track, a cloaked ship? We're sitting ducks, and it's like, well, it has to have an exhaust port, Uhura suggests, and then they're like, okay, let's change up our sensors, do some Star Trek stuff.
We've all got these gaseous anomaly recorders.
And eventually they just fire blind, but like they kind of guesstimate the trajectory. They get a hit, and then fire on that explosion, fire everything, right? And then they go
play
obviously Sulu's there with the Excelsior. They're kind of teaming up.
Yeah, Sulu shows up to save the day. Yeah. It's a great battle. I think it's just as good as the one in Wrath of Khan, if not better, honestly.
I think that's that Nicholas Meyer influence of that, again, the naval battle stuff. Like, he's really good at that.
And the literature, where, let loose the dogs of war. He's spinning in his chair. Christopher Plummer, this is some of his best stuff.
They're really trying to make him like the next Khan, it feels like, where it's like, we haven't had like a really iconic villain since Khan. Let's make Chang like the next Khan.
Yeah, and I would ask you guys, I guess it kind of factors into our ratings at the end, but when you put Chang versus, and the name is, again, very racist in my opinion. I do not like saying the name.
It's
Chang,
not like a Klingon name. It's kind of weird for a Klingon name.
Doesn't sound like it.
I mean, it's a surname on Earth, to be fair, in some places, but it's still weird for a Klingon.
It just feels weird to transport it. But versus Krug.
It needs one apostrophe.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that would be. But
one apostrophe.
Well, let's call him that. Versus Krug, who was our other theatrical Klingon villain.
Right.
I mean,
Krug.
Chang is, I would say,
well, again, we had the guy from the last movie.
Doesn't count. Yeah.
That does not count. That's just strange.
That's Krug.0. Yeah, that's like even worse than Krug.
They've tried. Yeah,
but it is kind of a two-hander for a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, they had Cybok in the last one as well. He didn't really land as a villain, so they're just like, well, we're gonna have General Chang.
Now. Mike has turned me around on Cybok.
He's just a charismatic guy who really believed in his mission. It turns out he was wrong. He did some wrong things.
But he's not a villain. A villain or a rival for Shatner, like Chang can be,
No, and Chang, I think it's a good time to talk about him as a character because he's about to die. I think he's great in this. I think he seeds stuff early, like times like this, it's always hardest for people like us, the warriors, to like move on in this shit.
Right.
Like I'm really happy to meet you. So I think he's a great foil. They get to meet in the same room, unlike they did with Khan. So
yes.
I won't
Yeah,
say
he
whether I like
respects
it
Kirk.
more or less, but I enjoy
He
it
literally
greatly.
says, "You and I are the same." You know, he
Yeah.
gives
He
kind
sees
of
him
that
as
villain
a-
speech.
yeah.
It was a peer. Yeah. Great warrior.
Right. And obviously Christopher Plummer, great actor. And him and Shatner worked a lot in the theater, years ago and stuff. So they knew each other for a long time.
Huh.
In
yeah.
Shakespeare, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Oh,
did
yeah.
Shakespeare together. Like they did a
So
lot
that's
of
why
plays and
Plummer's
stuff.
like, yo, give me some Shakespeare
He's a Shakespearean
lines.
Yeah,
actor.
put it in there, man.
Yeah, and he's great.
So they do get him, and boom, like you said, though, we got to stop the assassination, Manchurian Candidate, and now we
That's
get our
right.
big wrap up. Yeah.
So the crew beams down. They
Pull the mask off.
round up all the people involved in the conspiracy. The Romulan ambassador is involved too, General Cartwright or Admiral Cartwright. And then they stop the assassin. Like, we did it. Go back on the Enterprise. They're like, Starfleet's calling us back. Enterprise due to be decommissioned, right? And Spock says, if I were a human, I would say, go to hell.
Yeah.
If I were a human.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right?
There's a
And then
Spock
they,
and more human. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they blast off on their final adventure, and the end.
Yeah.
They were never to be seen again. The
Breaks
ship
the rules
exploded
one more time. Yep.
minutes after takeoff. Yeah.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Get a great, I think, little closing scene too, where when Spock and Kirk are kind of wrapping things up, or kind of discussing, are we too old to be useful? Can we change? Right. That kind of conversation happens during this movie, and that's kind of the theme, because by the end, Kirk says something like, "Who's the ambassador again? Gorbachev."
Yeah,
Gronk.
Yeah. So he's like, he had to die for me to understand how biased and I was, right? So he really
totally. And he
come
respected
around.
him because that guy legitimately was trying to make peace. As a Klingon, so he was like, I thought all Klingons were just only warriors and like would never accept peace, but this guy really proved me wrong.
Maybe
And
the
how
defense
is-
attorney started that thinking, like, hey, this guy's really making a case for us.
Grandfather
literally.
Worf.
You know what?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're on my side.
This is all circumstantial. He's like, Klingon lawyer.
Is it explained at all why these peace talks ever kicked off, and this whole impetus of, and of course, it's Spock's reasoning, and Spock and Gronk are old friends, Gorka.
Yeah, if
Why
I
are they
may.
friends?
Or Jacob,
Please,
do you
go
want
for
to take this?
No, go ahead.
It's my understanding that behind the scenes, Savick had told Spock maybe not Savick, but Spock had figured, I'll just go as a Starfleet person and try to start peace talks independently. Just like go and say, hey guys, what if? I'm just saying, what if? And then when they're like, hey, cool. He's like, all right, we'll get Kirk, and then the whole thing. So I think it's Spock's
We're in
kinda
a
doing-
crisis.
That could be.
You asked at the
Well, the
perfect time.
impetus with the Klingons is that the moon of Praxis explodes, and they
Right.
kind of are forced into making peace. And I think
Yeah.
the Federation has probably wanted to make peace with the Klingons for a long time because they're naturally would rather be at peace with societies than be at war, right?
But I mean, he really is introduced as Captain Spock. We saw him in Wrath of Khan. He's in this
Right.
teaching capacity. You said he's got this mentor with Kim Cattrall as well. But it really seems like now he is entering his father's role of, I just am an ambassador, and this will
Yes.
set up all future Spock
Right.
interpretations.
Obviously, if
really.
you've seen Next Generation, he does become an ambassador after leaving Starfleet and follows in his father's
Is
footsteps. Yeah.
Mhm.
timeline-wise, I assume that amazing two-parter where he appears as Spock, that occurs after this movie?
Oh yeah, that's like 100 years after this because
But
all of
film,
TNG is
I just
100.
mean filmic-wise.
Yes, that was I think maybe like the year after because so Mark
It's like
Leonard
season
who
2,
plays
season 3.
Sarek, this was
Sarah.
his last movie role, and also that two-parter was his last TV role before he died.
Okay. But
Yeah.
my
I think
big question being then, so that two-parter, since it comes after this, is that really the last time he plays Spock until the first
The
J.J.
Abrams movie. Yeah.
What a gap. And no one else returns, so it's not that strange, but it's just to think that we are going to get more Spock is wild.
Right. And what was he
Especially-
doing in that Next Generation? He's trying to make peace with the Romulans. So he's always
Yeah.
trying to make peace,
Yeah, so it was my understanding that Sarek and kind of was talking to Spock about let's go talk to the Klingons. It's a crisis. Let's see what's up. And this was kind of his pet project, Spock's pet project, and he even recommended Kirk without discussing it with him. So then now he's dealing with, I recommended you. I should have thought it through. Didn't think about how you would feel, and now you're in danger and nearly dead because I wasn't thinking about.
Spock's really interesting in this movie too because he, at one point, he's talking to Valeris and he says about logic. He says logic is the beginning of wisdom, not the end, and that feels like a lot of growth for his character too, where he's not always completely logical.
Again, I think dying and becoming a baby. I think something is completely broken inside him. I think
it's the best thing that ever happened to him.
Yeah.
Your name is Jim. What?
Yeah.
It's scary, man.
That was Undiscovered Country.
There we go.
Let's jump now. We're going to kind of give our thoughts and opinions on that, but we'll do it as we're taking another one of Jacob's quizzes. Coming up next here on Normies Like Us. We're back. We're here on Normies Like Us talking Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country.
We're trekking.
Coming to an end. We're trekking. Coming to the end of our trek, Mike, of our
the first
long series, the first phase of our long series, as we're wrapping up the end of the original trilogy, the original series,
original sexology,
theatrical film, sextology.
Shatner
hey, what's your
it.
favorite film sextology? What?
My friend fell in love with the alien quadrilogy. He's like, it's a quadrilogy. And I always remember that. But sextology's up there.
Prometheus and Covenant, that's a sexology, baby.
Now it is.
I don't know.
You want a quadrilogy or sextology?
Sextology.
Sextology.
Yeah, we're at the end of an era, like you're saying. And I've got a little quiz for you guys.
Yeah.
First, let me just run through. So there's a lot of cameos and small supporting roles in this movie, maybe more than any of the other movies. I just wanted to run through these really quick. That I mentioned some of these already, but just to wrap it all up.
Yeah, they were trying to load it up, you think, for the final movie? Let's get as many cameos as we can.
Yeah.
Oh,
they got some fan service.
Real quick, just because we said final, Jacob, we didn't talk about the final shot. This is, of course, where Endgame gets the notion to do the signatures on the screen. Right. What a brilliant ending.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
please go ahead.
Cameo City.
I'm with you there, Colin. So, of course, some cameos. We had Michael Dorn, like I said. We had Renee Auberjonois. We had David Warner. A lot of characters, a lot of actors who would go on to play other parts in Star Trek. Mm-hmm. We had Brock Peters, again, another actor that would go on to play another part. We had Christian Slater. Slater.
I noticed this one this time. Never had before. Crazy.
Just a small cameo. They were just like, let's load it up with as many big names as we can just for
a fan, you think?
I think so. I think that's why he did this. And then, of course, we had Amon. We had Kurtwood Smith, our guy, that 70s show, bunch of other stuff. As the president of the Federation, looking real crazy with long white hair.
Is he an alien? I don't understand what's going on there. Yeah.
I don't know if he's an alien or just a human that looks really crazy.
Because they're in San Francisco. But it is Starfleet's headquarters, so he could be an alien.
But if you remember, the president of the Federation in the last movie was a different actor too. So it's like there's an election in between movies or something.
picked a wizard.
He puts on sunglasses to look at a chart in the deleted scene. Those are his reading glasses. Yeah, it's great.
Cool.
Yeah,
he looks cool as hell. That's why he probably got elected.
And then last Doc Brown. Shout out
Grace
to Krug.
Lee Whitney was in this movie as well. She played Yeoman Janice Rand in the original series.
Oh, yeah.
Just a little cameo there.
Cool.
But let's get into this little Wrath of Cobb Star Trek quiz.
That's right, babies.
So, of course,
I guess we'll set up how we do it. If you've listened to our other Star Trek episodes, Jacob does these amazing quizzes at the end. He's going to ask Mike and I some questions. And we're going to, if you watch our video feed, which you can always do on YouTube, we'll plug that right now, you'll kind of see us figure out honestly how to do it. But then we will verbally say sort of a true or false if that's the setup to the question.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're generally true and false. And basically just a little way to give you some more fun trivia.
We need to make little paddles that we can...
Yeah, that would be good. That would be good.
Yeah. We got 7-8 more movies. We could do it. Yeah.
Yeah, we probably should do that, actually.
Even a paper plate. Yeah. Got a high budget for this show.
We'll sell them.
Yeah, Normies Like Us. Patreon, whatever. All right.
That's right,
The Wrath of Cobb. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. First question. This is an interesting one. All right. We're starting it off strong here. Gene Roddenberry. Might have heard of him. Creator of Star Trek. Gene Roddenberry died within 48 hours of watching this film for the first time.
Oh.
True or false?
Whoa. All right. I'm ready.
Gotta go.
All right. Let's see it.
I'm saying true.
True.
I'm saying true as well.
That is true. That is true.
48 hours? I knew he died
that's crazy.
Shortly after, but not 2 days.
Early 90s, he was struggling. His health was struggling. He actually had a meeting with Nicholas Meyer where he's kind of fulfilling his role as consulting producer. They're like, we have to take advice from this guy still.
But Jacob, you're dying and you have to take a meeting with the young buck.
Or he wants to take a meeting.
Who, after the first movie you made, they brought in this guy to replace you for the second one where everyone goes,
that's right.
This is what the thing should have been the whole time. And you're like, I invented the thing.
We're giving you the special chair. Roddenberry, like they put him in the special chair after that. You could give us advice so we don't have to take it.
Yeah, exactly. So we had a meeting with Nicholas Meyer where he was in a wheelchair hooked up to an oxygen tank. It was like that bad. And apparently this meeting with Nicholas Meyer was very heated, where he had all these notes on the cut that he just watched, because you watched a rough cut. He had all these notes. He got into it with Nicholas Meyer about some of these cuts. And he literally died 2 days later. And Nicholas Meyer said he really regretted how that meeting went, because that was like the last time he ever saw him.
Grabbing at your nurse on your deathbed saying, call Nicholas. Did he
was literally in the chair
changes?
that Captain Pike is in, right?
No, Oh, no.
Beep, beep.
Yeah, true, false.
No. I'll change that.
Yeah. So that's kind of sad, but
it was Nicholas Meyer's idea, though, right? To for a movie about people kind of reconciling with their past or their biases, he suggested that this should be dedicated, obviously, to the memory of Gene Roddenberry.
Yes.
Which is weirdly fitting.
Opens the film.
For the ending of the original series movies and the original series that Roddenberry created. Obviously, it's unfortunately passed within 48 hours watching this, but for the final film to be dedicated to the creator, it's weirdly poetic in a way, despite the tragedy of the.
Well, the last things he saw was a rough cut of this movie, which he didn't really like very much, and then he died.
Really like. Dogs.
Wow.
That's how it goes sometimes. But he did have
Call
more
your loved
input.
ones. Say sorry if you hurt people's feelings. Okay?
Yeah.
Hey, give it up to an OG who was a fucking sex pervert who got whatever he wanted, wrote a fucking weird thing everybody was down with, and then was working until he was dying.
And he got kind of sidelined in the movies, but he did have a lot more input, especially in Next Generation early on in the first couple seasons. After he died, the writers were like, well, now we have more freedom to kind of do what we want.
Jean-Luc. No, Gene.
It's going to be called Skin of Evil. It's going to be an oil pit that kills people. Okay, Gene.
Hey, can I say something real quick? I think that Paramount Plus, here's a pitch for you. Mm-hmm. I think they should keep doing The Offer. I don't watch that show. I don't know what that show is.
Of course, that's the Godfather behind-the-scenes show.
And Jacob, we've done episodes on this, Watches, I think, or something, where you very aptly pointed out that, it's just, intellectual, just, garbage to be like, we can't make a thing about the thing, but we can make a thing about the thing about the thing. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That said, The Offer Season 2, Gene Roddenberry makes the first season of Star Trek. You would combine both your audiences. Your primary audience on Paramount Plus is Star Trek fans.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to see that fucking show and story. Lucille Ball is a character. William Shatner is a character who's insane.
That would be amazing. Yeah, Lucille Ball comes in with the funding as a hero.
An open swinger making this show, being and here's what I'm doing in my personal time. That would be incredible.
Even if you get show. Yeah, but you get the same actors for Spock and Kirk to just be Leonard Nimoy, right?
Mike.
And Kirk,
bring him over from Strange New Worlds.
Incredible, right?
Ethan Peck as Leonard.
But they're playing the actors, So even their performances as Spock and Kirk can be a little bit more original series-esque, right? Because they're Nimoy
That's
now?
a great idea.
That'd be wild.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Start in the
all right, let's
Western,
move
end
on.
in space.
Let's keep going.
Next question.
Yeah. Next
1-1.
question. Next question. And this is the one that was hinted at a little bit, but Gorkon, our favorite guy, Gorkon, his name comes from the 2 models for his character. True or false?
What's the second model?
And
That's what I'm wondering, if it is in even what we said before part of it.
Yeah.
I think
this answer might be kind of easy, but
I'm just going to have to go with my gok.
yeah, go with you. Exactly. All right, 3, 2, 1, reveal.
True.
Okay?
True.
I said false. I think it's one person.
It's true. It's true. But here's the bonus question. So you
Who
mentioned
is the other
Gorbachev,
person?
right? That's
Yes.
the first part. Who is the second? And think about how he looks, his facial hairstyle. Does that remind you of anyone? And
He
also
has-
being the figure that he is in his society.
I'm
Think
talking this out with you, Mike. He has a top knot, right? He's sort of samurai almost, but also like, just like I said, Gorbachev-y.
Cold War.
It may not be someone related to the Cold War, though. Just maybe a
Right.
famous
His name is
leader from the
let's
past.
just say that. His name is Gorbachev.
Oh, I got it. Yep. No, I know exactly who.
You know who?
Hitler?
Genghis Khan.
No.
Oh,
Dang
wait,
it.
is
Tell you guys?
not? Oh, that seems perfect. I give up.
I will
yeah.
reveal. So
Dang, I thought I was nailed it.
Hitler,
I thought that was
no.
it, dude.
No. Chancellor Gorkon is the combination of Mikhail Gorbachev and Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, because
The
he's
beard,
a
he's got a Lincoln
statesman.
beard. He literally looks like Abraham Lincoln. If he was a
And he
kid.
has the mole, and he is a good guy, we should say.
Yeah, and he's
So-
trying
Who gets
to unite his
assassinated
people.
for
He
trying
gets assassinated.
Yes, of
exactly.
course.
Exactly.
Oh my
yes, they
God.
combined.
I would have never. That's
Gorbachev and
incredible,
Lincoln
dude.
and made
that is so
Gorkin.
funny.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's that.
Lincoln. Well,
I shot my
said
shot.
Hitler. Mike said Genghis,
Genghis
Khan.
Khan.
That's how far away
No.
we were.
Yeah.
Gorkin's a good guy. He was
This
trying to
script
bring
is so
peace to the
much
Klingons.
better than it. Yeah, this
Oh,
is great.
Yeah, right. Again, a script that Jacob pointed out earlier, but I want to say 3 story by credits. One of them is Leonard Nimoy.
Yes.
3
Well, there's a
written by credits. None of them Leonard Nimoy.
so there's a
them
whole
Nicholas
story
Meyer.
behind that, Colin. The 2 guys that they originally got to write the script, they basically didn't end up using anything from that script. But those 2 guys
know
still
what it
went to the
was?
WGA
And
to
said,
get credit.
we made a Star Trek
Yeah.
movie.
And actually, originally they're like, Nimoy's not going to get a story credit, but then he fought to get a story credit because he's like, this whole movie was basically my idea.
I'm
Like, these guys had nothing to do with
willing
it.
to bet
Right.
he actually did a lot of the writing too. Because
Yeah.
if you look at his relationship with Nicholas Meyer, they seem pretty.
Yeah,
hand
they were
in
pretty
hand,
close,
so.
and he just didn't want to. He didn't want to direct it again because he's like, Shatner's not going to like that,
and that's such a good reason.
Bill is
yeah.
not going to
I
like
get
that.
No.
and he's probably right.
Old Klingon proverb. No, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next question.
Interesting. Next question.
So Kim Cattrall posed nude on the bridge of the Enterprise, wearing only her Vulcan ears. True or false?
Posed nude wearing her Vulcan ears. Kim Cattrall, who of
For-
course listeners know, Sex in the City.
Sex in the
So,
City. She was, she was in a bunch of movies earlier in her career. She has some
Mannequin.
weird kind of choices a lot of times. She was in Big Trouble in Little China.
Yes.
Like
yes,
she
yes.
didn't want to get typecast. I think that was important for her earlier in her career. But
Very interesting point.
yeah,
Hey, Jacob, a Kim Cattrall defender would have not have expected that.
she pops up
It's
in
great.
this
Good
movie.
move.
Yeah.
All right,
But yeah, what do we think?
I'm going. I'm locked.
True or false? 3, 2, 1. Reveal.
True. She was
True.
nude.
True.
Yeah.
That is false. I tricked you guys.
I wished.
No, because
Yeah,
that was.
I was
I'm
gonna Google it
pretty
the second
sure
we
it's
got
false
off.
because that was basically a widely rumored to have happened in the 90s. But both her and Nimoy, because the story goes, she posed nude for like a magazine spread or something. And Nimoy found out about it and destroyed the photographic evidence. Apparently,
Oh.
they've both denied it repeatedly and said that never happened. So, from what I know, I think it's false. It's just
I
a
was
rumor.
going to say
Yeah.
Leonard Nimoy famously has many books of photography, and one of them is nudes. It's interestingly enough famously very large women nudes, but I couldn't imagine that he had a book of Kim Cattrall Spock nudes.
No, the story goes that he found out and was very angry, and he was like, "You're gonna diminish the Star Trek brand, basically."
But wait, this is like, well, what scenario is this that she's taking naked? Who's taking the pictures? And then
for like
Leonard
I don't
Nimoy
know, for a
happens
magazine
to
or
be
something.
Is this
like
like a Playgirl in space? Like, I don't know what's going on in
I don't
'92,
know.
but like
That's
you wouldn't
insane.
use the actual set. Like they wouldn't sign off on that.
Not
Paramount
in the
would
middle
never.
Of a movie.
Well, I think that according to the story is that she did it without them knowing, basically.
Right,
They found
right,
out
right.
later, and we're pissed.
Oh, okay.
But
Which again,
I
how
guess
do you
that
get
didn't
access
happen.
to the set off hours? It seems more unlikely the more you talk about it, and I feel like a fool.
Yeah,
Yes.
we said true. So
I mean, a lot of people believed it at the time, so but they've denied it since. So maybe it didn't happen. Maybe they're just covering up.
kind of
We'll
us
never know.
slut shaming. Kim Cattrall, kind of just like a quote unquote easy woman, right? The
Right.
role she plays. I think that was just me and Mike going like, I don't know.
No, she's in a lot of stuff, and
Yeah.
she famously didn't want to come back to Sex and the City for this newest
Right. Right.
thing, and she's like, I'm kind of just done with that. And her and Sarah Jessica Parker apparently don't get along. It's a real Nimoy Shatner situation.
She is instead the Bob Saget of How I Met Your Father, or How I Met Your Mother on How I Met Your Father. She plays the older Hilary Duff voice.
Oh, right.
Interesting.
Of course.
One
my
of those
vote-
things where you're like, what?
Yeah.
But you're paid for every episode, so I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah, I'll do it in my living room. Well, to be fair,
Yeah.
my vote was probably more based on my Enterprise fandom than anything, so we can move on.
All right, next question here. Christian Slater. He was cast in this movie by his mom. True or false?
Oh, I'm
He was
ready.
cast by his mom.
Asked by his mom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Believe that?
All right.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Reveal.
True.
True. That is true.
Nice.
I think I've said true for every single one.
I've not said true once.
And been
I've
wrong.
Yeah, it's true. It's 2-3.
Yeah. Yeah. The casting director, Mary Jo Slater, cast her son, Christian Slater, who was obviously a rising star in the 90s.
Yeah, he was in stuff by that point.
He was in stuff, but he was a big Star Trek fan, and he came on, got paid $750 for his cameo in this
It
movie,
says that.
and he framed the check that he got.
Oh.
So
He allegedly
Just did it
kept
as
the
a fan.
uniform too, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
would.
That's right. That's
There
very
you go.
cool.
One line. Waking up Captain Sulu. Right. He pops in. Yeah.
Captain.
Good job, Christian Slater.
He could be on
great.
lower decks. He could play that character.
Yeah.
Yep. He's just old now.
Um.
Good morning.
All right. Next question. So in the Klingon court scene, the
Mhm.
translator that is translating General Chang's testimony is Claw, the renegade captain from the previous film that was coming after Kirk, and had to apologize at the end. True or false?
Wow.
Klingons in the last one? I don't remember any of that.
The Klingon that's chasing Kirk. and
Remember
at the
that
end
like
it's
young buck who's like, I'm gonna
I'm
kill
sorry.
Kirk.
Yeah.
Sure.
That guy was demoted to translator duty in
To
the courtroom.
translator.
Yeah, you
True
gotta
or false?
study human language.
They're attacking us.
What a demotion.
Yeah.
All right.
That's basically all he says. I'm locked in.
I'm locked in.
3, 2, 1. Reveal.
False.
False?
False. That is true.
Oh
Apparently,
man.
that is supposed to be the same character. And they don't
Lockstep.
say in
It's
the,
the
film,
same actor?
but he got demoted as punishment for the previous film, his actions in the previous film, and he has to do translator duty.
I do
Yeah.
like when Chong is like, don't wait for the translator, answer me. And it's like, I don't know what he fucking asked me, bro.
Right.
Yeah.
But
That's
anyway.
very
And they do
funny.
the trick of they start and he's speaking in Klingon and they're translating, and then they just show him speaking English. That's the old Hunt for Red October type of thing.
Yeah, Lost would do that occasionally. J.J. Abrams took notes, obviously,
Yeah.
to take over this franchise eventually. So,
Right.
interesting.
Just a little, shorthand for he's speaking a different language and being translated.
Yep.
All right, next question. So you guys both got that one wrong. Wow.
Man, it's 4-3 Colin.
I didn't
right
remember
now.
the character.
No, I might have looked at my phone for 1 second.
So, despite being friends prior to the shoot, William Shatner and Christopher Plummer did not get along on set. True or false?
Believable.
I think I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm locked in.
All right. 3, 2, 1, reveal.
False.
It's a false too, man. I'm trying to
I'm
swerve
saying Jacob said they were pals.
That
think
is
they're pals.
false. I
Oh,
was
thank
trying to trick
God.
you guys again.
Thank
You didn't
God.
fall for it.
My
I
beloved
made that
Will
up.
Chang.
And like I said, they worked together a lot previously in the career. And actually, Shatner was at one point an understudy for Christopher Plummer in plays and things. So
Not
they
the
go way
same
back.
types, would you guys say?
maybe when they were younger. I don't know.
I heard a
Even
story.
then.
Like I saw Christopher Plummer in an interview, and he talked about one time, I think it was Hamlet or something, when Shatner took over for him because he was sick, and he's like, "Yeah, he just went in there and did the opposite of what I did. If I was sitting during my speech, he would stand up. If I was standing up, he would sit down."
That's hilarious.
So
that sounds exactly
they are
what he would do.
opposites, you know.
Yeah.
To do it like on purpose does sound like what Shatner would do, because he's like, "No, that's crazy. You're sitting
Making
when
a
you're
conscious
speaking.
choice
You gotta
to-
get up.
I'll
and
stand
dance."
up.
Like,
Yeah.
And then I guess Plummer said, and I said, "That son of a bitch is going to be a star. I know it."
oh, that's so good.
Wow. Christopher Plummer obviously has been in a lot of things. If you've never seen the movie Beginners, that's a really good one worth
Yes.
checking out with Ewan
I've not seen
McGregor,
that.
our guy
there.
Obi-Wan. He plays an old guy who comes out as gay, and Ewan McGregor is his son and has to like come to terms with him being gay, and there's like a relationship too and stuff. So it's a really nice little movie.
Huh.
And
So check
just
that one out,
passed away,
Beginners.
A year ago or 2 years ago, I think, but very
That's
recently.
right.
So
Yeah,
just like David
recently.
Warner as well. Unfortunately.
That's
Well,
right.
rest in
He
peace.
also passed away. Nichelle Nichols. We've lost a
Yep.
lot of
Kerwood
Star
Smith.
Trek actors, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Still going.
Holding
Still
on,
going
yeah.
strong.
Shatner's
Could
still
probably
out
be
here
in
too, I'm just
that
saying.
80s show.
Shatner,
right?
I don't care about Mike. I'm like
Yeah,
counting
just
down the
saying.
fucking days at this point. To me, that's like the Queen. The way people are acting.
Oh, yeah,
Get
yeah,
this
yeah.
guy out of
Jeez.
here.
Yeah, Shatner, Takei.
We just lost our 4 British
Koenig.
viewers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are
and-
left. Yeah.
yeah.
Anyways, on
Nuclear
to
vessels.
less depressing
Yes.
subjects, right? Next question. So, okay, this is an interesting one. So, when Chekhov says, guess who's coming to dinner?
Yeah.
That obviously is a reference to the movie Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, about a white woman dating a black man in the 60s. That line was originally going to be said by Uhura, but Nichelle Nichols refused to say it. True or false?
Ooh, man.
Interesting.
Interesting. Okay. I think I'm ready.
I'm locked in.
All right.
All right. 3, 2, 1, reveal.
True.
I'm going the
True,
opposite.
false.
I'm going
There's
false. I have to
so
think they
much
weren't so
race stuff in
thick-headed.
this, Mike. No, there is so much race stuff in this movie.
That is
There's-
true. They wanted her to say it. She didn't.
Fuck.
She's like, I'm not going to be the only black main character and say that. Like, and then another line that
Yeah,
she
Good for you.
was going to say, but she refused to say. During another scene, they were going to have her say, "Yeah, but would you let your daughter marry one of them?" And she did not say that.
No.
Yes. So
Did they give both those lines to Koenig?
Chekhov? I think so. Yeah.
Jesus
Chekhov will say
Christ.
it.
He also says that thing. Did you guys notice when it's like, and of course Cinderella, a Russian fairy
Russian.
tale.
Yeah.
I'm like, shut
If the shoe
fuck up.
fits.
Man, and
Yeah.
yeah, let's talk about. Yeah, there's a lot of that in this movie. You get even Scotty's like being super racist and
Yes.
stuff, and it's like,
Well, the other thing
Whoa.
is they specifically made Admiral Cartwright, Brock Peters, be the guy that, and he gives this
Of
big
course.
speech about how the
most
Klingons are the
radical.
enemies and stuff. And just a little side fact, he had a hard time doing that speech, and he couldn't even do it in one take because he was so kind of emotional about it. But
right.
in the end, it like had a good impact
So-
to have him be the guy. That,
Yes.
Interesting.
Again, it makes the movie very interesting. It
Narratively.
does. I
Yeah.
even said all the Game of Thrones stuff earlier. It's cool to see all the machinations of a quote unquote court and see a power struggle and stuff. But it is interesting in a 2022 lens to be like, this is some crazy stuff they're talking about, and the choices that they're making of what they're saying to what type of people are also crazy in their own way.
right.
Yeah, I get that they're playing, allegory, and it's a parable, right? But like looking at it, yeah, with 2022 eyes, right, where it's just so
It's not great.
reductive at looking at an entire culture is untrustworthy and shit. It's kind of rubs you the wrong way, knowing that these are heroic figures.
The most
But-
progressive people in history, Mike.
Yeah.
But it kind of shows that even in this future time when we have this utopia, like racism and bigotry can still exist in
at war.
even
you need
ways
to
where people don't
constantly
realize.
work on
Yeah.
yourself, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're an old ass man, you need to constantly work on yourself and your worldview and your
Right.
biases, because the future comes without hesitation, right? And that's
Exactly.
the undiscovered country. So
That's
it'll
right.
come. Things
Here's
will
a
be
little,
changing.
Yeah.
Can I say something? If Cartwright was a super young black guy, if he was like a 20-year-old, I think that would have worked a million times better.
Interesting.
Interesting.
It just comes off crazy to me.
But yeah, big thing.
But also
in this movie,
having
so be aware of that.
again, another layer to it is that Brock Peters, before this role, his most famous role was as the accused black man in To Kill a Mockingbird. If you've ever seen that movie with Gregory
I read
Peck.
that book.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But here's a little bonus fact about Nichelle Nichols as well. She didn't like the translation scene where they're kind of like looking through the books for the Klingon translation. She's like, Uhura would know like some basic Klingon at least as the communications officer. So she felt like that was not the best. And then here's a little deep bonus fact for you. So, guess who's coming to dinner? She refused to say that line. That was obvious reference to the 1967 movie Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. They remade that movie as a movie called Guess Who in the year 2005.
right.
And who starred in that movie? Zoe Saldana, who of course would go on to play Uhura.
Oh,
So
of course.
there's a deep cut for you.
That's great. Yeah, Ashton Kutcher and her. That's
Put that in your-
they swap the genders. So in that one, it's a black woman dating a white man who comes over to visit for dinner for their family. So
Like
as
for
bringing
popular
back
TV. Yeah, popular TV sitcom, The Neighborhood.
Right.
Wacky scenarios around.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So,
throw
bunch
that in
of
your
facts for you there.
6 degrees of separation. Mind everybody.
Yeah.
Again, it's Star Trek. You're not going to get this in Star Wars.
No. Okay.
All right.
Last question.
Colin's
How about
ahead
that?
by 2, so I'm
Wow.
pretty much
Okay. Well,
dooskied.
this last one's worth 7.
All right. You said it.
You said 2 more?
No, this is the last.
This is
last
You're
the
ahead
question.
by 2.
Yeah, we
so
can make
I'm
it worth
ahead.
3 if you want to. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, if you want to make
Do
it.
it. We
I
gotta,
don't
yeah,
care.
we gotta make it
All
a
or
gamble.
nothing.
Come on.
Yeah.
I don't know if
all
this is the
marbles.
best fact either, but we'll go with it.
Okay.
This movie is the first canonical mention of Sulu's first name, Hikaru Sulu, and James Tiberius Kirk's middle name. It's the first time they were mentioned.
That's a great question, Jacob, because this is a stumper. Shit.
Think about
Wow.
that. Yeah.
Mike,
I
are
have to
you
think
locked
of-
in immediately? Okay.
It's a gawked instinct. I don't know for sure. I'm trying to think back on all 5 of these that we've watched, and then maybe it got.
Show and stuff?
Did it get
It's like,
slipped in the show?
Keep in mind, these characters were not as fully developed in the show.
right.
Right.
Some of the side crew members, other than Spock, Bones, and Kirk.
Right. Chekhov's
So
first
think
name was
about it.
Mister. Right.
Yeah. All right. I
I'm
know what
locked
I'm
in.
going with.
Locked
Yeah,
in?
yeah.
Fuck.
All right. 3, 2, 1, reveal.
I'm going
False.
true.
All right, we're on opposite ends
Colin
for all the
says
marbles.
true. Colin, you've done it again. Or I don't know, have you won again? Because that is true. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. All right, Colin.
Yeah,
That's
this is the first
that's a shocking
time
fact.
9
Sulu
to
is
4.
given her first name, Hikaru Sulu. James
Right.
Tiberius Kirk, spoken for the first time.
They just call him Sulu every episode of that TV show.
Okay, and
Mr.
even crazier
Sulu.
than that, Uhura did not have a first name. And this is going to maybe blow your mind because I didn't even realize this. She did not have a first name spoken in anything until the J.J. Abrams 2008 or 9 movie,
No.
Star Trek.
What?
She
It's
was not
it's
given a first
Nieta?
Neota.
What is it?
Uhura. And actually,
Yeah.
And she's the
Roddenberry had a
fucking
different
star of
first
a
name
show
in
we
his
watched.
mind for her that they never said in any of these movies, but she's always just Lieutenant
Well,
Uhura.
Jacob, in the movie Citizen Roddenberry, on his deathbed, the last thing he says is her name.
Right.
Yoda, yeah.
The
Rosebud.
lost Uhuru first name.
It has to
Yeah.
have been in a book or something because Roddenberry wrote a lot of that stuff. Like it has to, but
Yeah,
not
with
in,
Koenig.
on
I
screen.
think it was maybe in some of the expanded canon
Never
stuff,
on
but never
screen, though.
spoken on screen
That's
until
so cool.
if you remember,
That's crazy.
the J.J. Abrams, one of the bits of that movie is Kirk trying to discover her first name, right? Because he meets her early on. He's like, "What's your first name?" Like trying to get to know her, right?
Oh,
Mhm.
I'm
And they reveal it at the very end.
Here's the
So,
thing, Normies. If
you're
you've
ready
been
for that
watching
rewatch.
these movies with us,
Yeah.
and if you're going to keep doing it, watching the rest of these Star Treks, one, Jacob's going to have more awesome quizzes for even when we get to like the next gen, which is coming up, or
Right.
the J.J. Abrams verse. But also, you're just going to notice shit like that. I'm so excited to notice shit like that.
Yeah.
It'll be
Armed with
fun.
this fresh knowledge going forward, it's changing a lot of things. And I'll talk about that a little bit with my final thoughts on this.
Yes.
Yeah, we're
And do your
basically Star
rankings.
Trek experts at this point.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Well, that's my little Wrath of Cobb quiz, and Colin won. Congratulations.
The Undiscovered Country.
That's right.
Yes. The Uncovered Country. Well, we'll be right back with final thoughts and rankings right after this, Normies. That was great.
Perfect.
That was great.
So the first segment was about an hour, so I'll just cut that in half. This was about 30 minutes, and then the outro.
Nice.
So it's like perfect 30, 30, 30.
Perfect.
And we don't have to go super long on the outro. Final
Okay.
No,
thoughts.
it's just. I mean, I'm okay to make sure we say what we want because I do think this is a special film.
So basically, we want to take October off from Star Trek for Spooktober.
Let's
Then
talk
in
about that
November.
even now.
Okay.
After, yeah, but
On
we can
air.
talk about it
November
right
we
now.
can do-
Yeah,
Yeah.
on air.
So in November we could do what's the Tim Allen Galaxy Quest. And then
Santa
do
Claus.
Generations, or skip December too because it's Christmas, and then do Generations in January, or do Generations in December.
We could move the episode up. Because how
If
many
we don't-
Christmas episodes are we going to have?
Honestly,
Unless there's
how
a
many are we
pop
gonna
culture
do?
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So
Um,
then
And
we
just
do
not having to be
Generations.
the last one of the year. The last one of the year can just be a whatcha, right?
Right,
Or
right.
the wrap up of the year.
yeah.
Yeah. And then
all
we'll
right.
do Next Gen, and then we'll do Abrams. Right.
Yeah, do next gen next year for sure, I think. So if we can clear up, if either Generations is the first one of the new year, like, okay, we're passing the torch, and then it's next gen movies.
And that's kind of the transition
That's
because you
great.
have Shatner and Picard in there at the same time.
Yeah.
That's great, guys. That's
Yeah.
I think
so
that's the way to
good.
do it. Cool. Good timing. All right. Well, we're
Perfect.
ready to do this thing.
Yeah, we planned this.
Mm-hmm.
We're back here on Normies Like Us. We're giving our final thoughts because we just had so much fun talking about the 6th theatrical entry of the Star Trek franchise, where again, we're wrapping up the OG cast members and saying goodbye. Now, if you're watching along with us, Normies, again, you know these episodes come as the last episode of every month. We're going to take a break coming up in October for Spooktober. And then, as
Spooktober.
we said
Mm-hmm.
on this podcast in the past, we're going to insert a special episode because we're going to talk a little Galaxy Quest as our next Star
Ooh.
Trek movie entry.
Yes.
And then we'll
yes.
hit up Generations, and then Insurrection, First Contact, so on. All the way, hopefully, through the Kelvin movies and into
Kelvinverse.
potentially the next Kelvin movie in December of 2023, which is right now when it's slated to come out.
That
That
would be
is
amazing.
so crazy if we bring this thing into doc
would
perfectly.
be-
Yeah.
My
I think
Jesus
we're
Christ.
going to miss a couple months, maybe. Or we have to, take a couple breaks or something. But we'll see.
do 4 patriotic weeks in July. It'll be all American. movies
Oh
we'll
no,
get
you're
there.
making us do the Transformers movies again.
Again? yeah, unfortunately.
I'm excited for Galaxy Quest. There's a lot of Galaxy Quest in this movie. The bolted-on eye patch, of course, directly parodied in Galaxy Quest. So keep your eyes out. But let's give some final thoughts on this movie that movie's going to make fun of. This film, Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. And of course, look out at the end if you're watching our video episode because we are going to sign the screen.
Right. Got my
Make-
signature ready.
Jacob's is going to After Effects it.
Yeah, Jacob's
Manually.
final thoughts and do 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 do.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah, I guess I
Final
could jump
thoughts.
in. Yeah. So
Please.
I adore this movie. I think
Yeah.
it's the best looking original series movie.
Wow.
It might, because Khan is good, but it looks flat, and it does. It does. This
Joe
looks
said
cinematic.
old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
even though
well,
the
it is
effects, and the effects
Yeah.
are ILM, but it's a lot better here, right?
Yeah.
That's what the 90s will
And this
get
is
you,
early
you know?
90s versus early 80s, so it's
Yeah.
a decade difference in technologies and
But
things
the
like that.
90s age is worse to me, and I would agree that this movie looks better, Mike.
Yeah, this looks good. And, ILM has had, experience shooting miniature ships in Star Wars in 76, or whenever they got started on that. So anyway, it looks great. It's a great story. I think it's it feels the most like Star Trek. Like it's a fun little plot, you get a little whodunit and things are going on. Obviously we talked a lot of the themes about, change and putting aside your prejudice, right? Obviously that's a big thing with the Cold War. I don't trust the commies, that kind of mindset that people would have in America.
Right.
Put that on Klingons. I think it's interesting to see our heroes wrestling with that and knowing that, like, an entire civilization is not on the hook for what a couple people did to you, right?
Yeah.
But that being said,
it needs to be said even today, sadly.
Yeah, it does, and it's crazy. I mean, 9/11, not to get too heavy, but it's like, yo, guys, let's chill on the way we treat other people. But
Right.
it's an important message, and Star Trek's always been about that. And I think that this movie, having watched it now, it's got to be like the most important event, in the history of Star Trek up to this point. Like what Kirk and crew have done here, it literally sets the tone for, Worf eventually being able to be in Starfleet. Like it opens up the universe of Star Trek in such an interesting and important way that I think even if you think Khan is a better movie, in the continuity of Star Trek, this movie is more important to the universe as a whole. And for that, I love it. I absolutely love it.
I agree with you there, Mike. I think this is the most modern of these OG films. And when I say modern, I'm talking obviously about the period of Star Trek 30 years ago or 40 years ago in some cases, the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise era. That's what I consider modern, even though, like I said, 30 years ago. But
yeah, now we have modern. Yeah.
Yeah, postmodern.
The postmodern Star Trek is discovered. Yeah.
But this movie feels the most like a Next Generation type plot or something where, and of course, Next Generation is airing at the same time. So they're taking inspiration from how they're kind of doing things on that show. But it does feel a lot more like the Star Trek that I know, which is mainly the 90s era type stuff rather than the original series, which some of the older movies felt more closer to that. So I totally agree with you there.
Planting a lot of those seeds with the Klingon culture that we get more in Next Gen, stuff like that. Yeah, definitely.
And even, Colin, they go even deeper in Next Generation with the Klingon stuff. So if you like Klingon culture, want to learn more about that, check out the Next Generation and Deep Space Nine.
Mike, do your ranking real quick, and then I'll go and we'll let Jacob land this thing.
Yeah, it's a tough call. I want to, having seen this more freshly, and I like the cinematography and kind of the character having more of an arc. My reflex is to put it Khan after this. So I almost want to.
Wow.
I almost want to go Undiscovered Country, Khan.
Where is this guy?
Final Frontier.
5? He loved 5.
No, what?
Number 3, baby.
I knew it.
No, what about Voyage Home?
Normies, right in. This is the wildest.
Voyage Home is after 5, and then
I can't believe that.
And then 1 is at the bottom, and 3.
That's insane to me. But
6 and 2 can be flipped, but right now I really like 6.
I'm proud of you, Mike.
I guess I almost put 5 higher than Con. I guess it's just what's recency bias. I didn't mean that, but
I think in your heart it's 6, 5, and 2.
In my heart, but I can't say that publicly or I'll be, extradited. So anyway, that's where I'm at.
I fucking hates Wrath of Khan.
You think Savick is better than Ricardo Montalban?
I will give my final thoughts on Undiscovered Country. I really hate that name. I think it's so bad. We pitched it earlier. They should be flipped. I thought about that while watching it. Like, truly, I was like, doesn't make sense. The 5th one is Undiscovered Country. The 6th is the Final Frontier.
It's a Shakespeare reference that everyone obviously knows. Yeah.
I don't think it's the future. I think it's death. I think death is the Undiscovered Country, right? Because it's Hamlet going like what's beyond.
And he would know. He heard it in the original Klingon.
Well, and that's the thing. True. Is that he's getting the original text.
Right, man.
It's got good villains. It's got good character actors. It's just the age. At this point, I think of the Simpsons cartoons where they're like, Star Trek 10 coming up on Fox. And, it's literally bones are in the seats as the ship is like going, right? Like they're just so old.
Yeah.
It's a bummer because of that, but it's not a bummer because of any story thing. I'm super glad Nicholas Meyer's back. He is the strength to this series to me. I am so anti Gene Roddenberry's school of Star Trek. I like the naval stuff. I like the conflicts. I like that his stories are always kind of end up being like, where I'm like, oh, this is what a Star Trek episode can be. And we talk about that a lot because we have covered so many different types of Star Trek that Star Trek plots are, let alone meticulously thought out as these like prologue 5-act structure conclusion things, but the movies kind of aren't that. But they do have that Twilight Zone effect of they can be about anything. And I think making the choice for the last one to be about, well, what if we just kind of close the book on any bad tensions or bad blood that were in the original series? You're kind of like, oh yeah, okay, that's great. That's I would put an end to that too. That makes sense. I'll do my ranking and say that 2, I'm a stan baby. Now, I love this one. As I was just saying, Search for Spock really hit me on our watch along, but I have to be true to my blood and say number 4, Undiscovered Country is my second. I love the whales.
Number 4, Voyage Home.
Yeah.
Voyage Home. Oh, did I say Undiscovered Country?
Yeah, that one should be called that too.
Yes.
They're discovering the country of the whales.
Name another sci-fi comedy with time travel. You can't because there's only one other, and it's a very popular series called Back to the Future. But that one is the good one, so how dare you?
Right.
And then from there, I would put this one, Mike, 6. It's great.
Wow.
Then I would go 3. I guess it's just for Krug. I guess that's what I like about that. I guess I love just the wrap-up of David Marcus, this crazy character that's only in these movies. I'll never get over him.
Yeah.
Then I will go
5, 1. Or
5 and 1. 5 and 1. I think I have to do 5 and 1.
Cybok is so sad. Fair enough.
But it's better than the original motion picture.
Can't blame you, yeah.
Your rankings are pretty close to mine, Colin, in some ways. Like I think I said at the beginning of doing this maybe 5 months ago or whatever, for me, it's 2, 6, 4 are the top 3, right?
Yes.
And that's Wrath of Khan, Undiscovered Country, Voyage Home. I kind of, at this point, don't know which one I like better, 4 or 6. But right now I have this one 6 second, and then I have 4 third. But they're very close to me. Yeah, because I do like 4 a lot.
It's fun. 4 is fun. 6 is a little more serious.
Funny. It's so funny.
It's so funny. Yeah, them just going back in time to San Francisco. Like it's just a good watch. This one, a lot going for it. A lot going, well for it. So I put this one second. So the Nicholas Meyer top 2, man.
Oh yeah,
killing it as a director.
However you slice it.
Yeah, so I go 2, 6, 4, 3, Search for Spock. Then I go 1, motion picture, and then bottom of the pile, baby, 5, Final Frontier. I'm sorry,
motion picture over
Shatner.
5. Yeah,
motion picture looks incredible. It's like 2001.
Yeah, which one would I rather rewatch on a random day? Probably the motion picture, I think.
You are so wrong.
Well, let me ask you this, Jacob. Which one has marshmallows?
That's true. That's very true. But I don't think I'll really be rewatching either of those movies anytime soon. If I was going to rewatch anyone, and I've watched all of these twice in like the last year at this point, but it would probably be Voyage Home or Wrath of Khan or this one.
Well, let's talk about that because we are wrapping up kind of a big watch along.
Yeah,
we did this burnout with Transformers that really kind of ended up making the system where we protract this a little longer so we don't sort of suffocate
week to week to week.
We've famously done Harry Potter. We've done a lot of
Star Wars, Lord of the Rings.
And Lord of the Rings is a perfect example, Jacob. You saying, I don't think I'm going to watch 1 and 5 again soon. When we got done with the Lord of the Rings series, I was like, you know what? That's a pause for, I think, about 5 years for me. I might not be going back to that. And that said, Mike
only Rings of Power
recently,
for me, baby.
Well, but Mike watched The Fellowship recently and was texting us. And I got to say, I've been having the hunger lately, baby. So I don't know if I'm going to live up to that. And I wonder if I'll end up coming back to the Star Trek films as I've kind of found myself doing the past couple of years.
Right. Well, I feel like I always get in the mood for the Lord of the Rings around holiday time. Thanksgiving feels like that time to me. Maybe it's the food and stuff.
That's a November, December.
That's a Harry Potter for me.
Right. But I will.
Harry Potter too, yeah.
December is Harry Potter. November is Lord of the Rings. But I will always, from now until the day I die, I will always skip the Hobbit movies because I don't.
Yes.
And so Star Trek has
Now
a bit
we
of that
know.
too, right? Like I will always watch the Myers movies, and then when I'm feeling
And
frisky,
skip right to your favorite
episode
show,
5. You
Rings
know,
of Power.
That's crazy, Mike.
no.
That's
So you know what I mean. But I will be
crazy.
skipping the
Yeah.
motion picture. I could skip, you know.
Yeah, you could skip the
Search for
motion
Spock
picture.
sometimes.
It really, you know, jump right to Wrath of Khan.
'Cause they
Watch that
retread it
trilogy.
anyway.
Yeah.
I think next, if I ever throw a party at my apartment and have like a bunch of people over, I'm going to mute it in the background and put 4 on. I think I'm going to put the Voyage Home on, and just people will be like, what is this? I'll be like, shh.
I think
Don't
the best
you
one to
worry.
watch muted would be maybe the first one. You could just
Yeah.
mute it and
Yeah.
just watch the visuals.
I think
right?
you're right. That
Look
would
at
be
it.
maybe the next time I watch the motion picture.
You got the Weekend and Dua Lipa blasting. That shit's going on. V'ger, right? It's
Right.
great.
Yeah.
I want to say though that these, like, the original trilogy, the original cast, the original Star Trek TOS, it really came into its own in the films, and the Nicholas Myers is the strongest of
Yeah.
it. You know, unironically, jokes aside about Sybok, like the best it has ever been, even with the show, is when Nicholas Myers was kind of at the helm. He
Yes.
brings that poetic kind of literary bend on it, and yeah, they're
I
just, they aged incredibly well. Not the actors, but the films, you know, did.
Yeah, I think Nicholas Meyer, he's
Not
a
the
real
Mm,
filmmaker.
sorry.
He can kind of give it a real filmic look, whereas you're not just having TV guys come on and say, I think you should do this and this. And when we get to Next Generation, it'll be interesting how you guys feel about these 4 generation movies, because
It's 4.
it's 4 including Generations. So you have Generations, which has Shatner,
And 3 solos.
and then 3 solos, and 2 of those are directed by Jonathan Frakes, carrying over the tradition of having an actor turned director. So William Riker directing 2 of those movies, and I'm interested to see what you guys feel about that era of Trek. I'm very excited to get to it.
Patrick Stewart didn't have a 1 for you, 1 for me.
No, I think he was just more kind of busy doing other things
Oh,
too.
I'm gonna
you
have
know,
interest.
Jonathan.
Mhm.
Yeah, he could have probably
Tell
if
me
he
what to
wanted
do.
to, I'm sure. But I'm very interested because obviously those movies all came out after the run of the Next Generation show, and they do get older in those as well. Maybe not as old as this cast, but Picard's pretty close in age to, like, he's not that much younger than Shatner. He was an older captain when he
But
first
same
started.
He
like
gets
these
one more
movies
go
in-
around the sun in Picard, though. He gets that old. Don't worry.
That's
he
true,
will
yeah.
get old. But
Yeah.
it's the movies are when the series is wrapped up. They are
Yes.
post-series.
Yes.
Fascinating. Okay.
Like Generations is post the entire show, so it's similar to this where,
wow.
but it didn't take them 10 years to come out with a movie after the OG cast. But I
Right,
agree
right.
with you, Mike, where they really did come as movies in a really interesting way that I don't think anything has ever been a show, got canceled after 3 seasons, and then came back a decade later and made 6 movies.
And
There's
made
just
good
nothing like
money.
it. Yeah, they were
This one set the
blockbusters in their
record.
time. Yeah.
For all Star Trek movies up to that point, this one did the best.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we're joking. They deserve the autograph at the end. That is a career that spanned an incredible adventure.
Yeah, and as a cultural touch point, I mean, the OG cast, they're all extremely well known in just pop culture in general. Like, you know, I would argue much more than, you know, even the J.J. Abrams cast or something, or the, you know, the Next Generation cast, even. Like, people know these actors as these roles more than like anything else, right?
And then like Nichelle Nichols' contributions to, you know, recruiting people of color to NASA and shit. Like actual
Totally.
real life change that has been affected through these actors and the show they were on and all that. And the strongest
Yes.
of its legacy is these movies, especially the Myers ones.
Yes, so I think they were definitely a net good for society that they exist. And, you know, I had a great time watching these 6 movies with you guys. Like, It's been
Incredible.
a blast. Yeah.
I call these the Star Trek movies. Now we are entering what I want to call an undiscovered country.
Yes, yes.
The future. Yes.
The future.
Wow.
I have
We're
one note.
jumping 100 years in the future. Yeah.
That's right. My one final note on the whole everybody's Klingon racist in this show is in this movie. Think about when it came out. Like we're having to tell the audience of today, let's not hate Russians for being, or U.S. as, you know, Soviet Union, former Soviet
Right.
Union. You know, it's like we have to hit that nail on the head. We're trying to teach that lesson. So that's why it's probably a little overdone. So also think about that when you watch it. It's not like gross for grossness sake. They're like trying to teach the audience a lesson. So again, it's Star Trek. That's what it's about. But you just,
I think people think
the
my
cultural
rant
context matters. Sorry.
I think, Mike, that's a fair point, because I think people think my rant several episodes ago about sex in Star Trek and how it wouldn't be in Star Wars is a joke. It's not just that kind of stuff. I mean other adult themes like politics, racism, all that stuff. You're never going to see anything that goes this in depth in it. So God bless.
No, they try to do that in Star Wars,
trauma.
but the Emperor is very one-dimensionally evil, right? They're the Nazis, they're whatever.
A fascist, and you're like, no.
Which is fine for children. I think that's the main difference between Star Wars and Star Trek, is that Star Wars is a fantasy show set in space. It's not really science fiction, whereas Star Trek is the science fiction. We're dealing with real issues, trying to tackle real world problems within a fictional setting, right?
And Jacob, Jabba the Hutt, what two real life politicians make up his name?
I think that's George Bush and
oh man,
Bush and the Hutt.
Oh man.
All right, I love it. These have been great episodes.
Yeah, it's
Normies,
been fun.
we hope you are listening to all of them. If you are, hit us up on all of our socials at Normies_like_us. Go, yo, Star Trek, these have been crazy. We want to hear that. Or if you haven't liked them for whatever reasons, let us know about that too, because that's very interesting criticism. And you can always pitch us other things to be talking about in the episodes where we're not doing Star Trek, which we do all the time on other stuff.
That's right. I'm excited to talk Spooktober. We've got a good slate of Spooktober episodes.
Always
hopefully.
Our favorite time of year.
Great time of year, spooky time.
Spooky season.
And thanks for taking this journey with us, Normies.
Wow.
Heck yeah, to the Undiscovered Country. Thank you.
Signing my name.
Signing my name, yep.
We've been your hosts. This is Admiral Colin.
Mike Coy.
And this is Mr. Jock. 2-star. What did he say? 2 stars to the left and straight on till morning.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Thanks,
you will
Normies.
always be our normies.
Bye.
Bye.